All right. Testing. Okay, it works. All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order for the January 8th, 2019 Newport Beach City Council study session. Madam Clerk.
The record will reflect that all council members are present.
Current business. Do we have any clarification on items on the consent calendar? Mr. Avery? Mr. Duffield? Mr. Muldoon? Ms. Brennan?
Is this where I tell you I would like to abstain on 2 items on the consent calendar?
We'll do that in the regular session, but if there are any questions you have on any consent
great.
items. Okay, Mr. Herdman?
None at all.
Mayor Pro Tem? I have none. Thank you. And I have none. All right, we'll proceed.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Mayor Dixon, if I might,
Sure.
we've just recently it's come to our attention that we have 2 items on public hearing, 2 fees, items 9 and 10, dealing with the harbor fees and the sidewalk vending permit application fee. And we've recently found out that the noticing, the public noticing requirements, where they get publicized into the newspapers, while we provided the information for publication, it due to issues at the newspaper side, the distribution of the newspapers did not occur for the first public noticing submittal on that. So in order to make sure we have the correct noticing periods set and noticed, we'd like to continue those 2 items to the next council agenda meeting.
Thank you. Was that the item with the Los Angeles Times and the malware that kind of penetrated all these different newspaper computer systems?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the specifics, but essentially it resulted in distribution of newspapers not occurring over the weekend, and it was set for a Saturday publication date, and it didn't get published till the following Wednesday. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you for letting us know. All right, we'll proceed now into study session item on the general plan update. Mr. Durgis or Mr. Campbell, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. Good evening. I am Simone Durgis. I'm your Community Development Director, and with me I have Jim Campbell, who's the Deputy Community Development Director. We're really excited about this evening's item. You know, we're going to talk about the kickoff to our general plan update, and I know everybody's been waiting for quite a long time to kick this off, so we're really excited to talk about it. Just a little background and a little history. We were in front of the City Council about a year ago talking about updating the general plan, except for Councilmember Brenner. The council at the time, because of the housing element that's going to be updated, that's due in 2021, it was discussed and decided that it'd be better that we just hold off on the general plan for at least a year. And it's really due to, just from a scheduling standpoint, it's become a better chance just to hold off 1 year. Now it's been a year, now we're back in front of the City Council. We're excited tonight, and we're going to talk about this first phase of the general plan update, and we call it phase 1. And I'll hand it off here to Jim Campbell in a moment here. But we want to talk about this first year, which is, we're going to call it the listen and learn. We're going to go out as staff and listen to the community. And it's really important that we do that. That's this first part of the general plan. We want to listen and understand, what does the community like to see in the general plan update. With that, we need some guidance, and we're going to ask the City Council to form a steering committee, and that's really going to be a sounding board for staff to get some direction from the steering committee to make sure we do everything correctly. This is a big project, and staff cannot do it on our own. We have public outreach, we have an EIR, we have some draft documents we need to write. There's a lot of work that needs to get done, and so we're going to ask that we hire a consultant, and we're going to talk about that this evening. We have about 20 slides for you that we're going to share all through this PowerPoint. At the end, I'm going to seek some direction from the City Council, and from there we can move forward to our next steps. And I just want to stress that this entire process is going to be very open and transparent, and we need to involve the community throughout this entire process. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jim Campbell, who is our Deputy Director.
Thank you, Simone. Mayor, members of the City Council, we last did our update of the general plan in 2006. The graphic here shows the various elements that we have in our general plan. The State Office of Planning and Research recommends that you periodically review your general plan and update it as necessary. There's really only one mandated element that it must be updated, and as Simone said, it's the housing element in 2021, and we can touch base on that a little bit in a moment. But the general plan is comprised of various elements. The mandated elements are the ones in the dark blue, and then the teal are optional elements that the city has chosen to do and put forward in 2006. Some are a little older than that. So we have 10 elements, 6 are state mandated. Again, it's the long-range blueprint for development and management of the community. So why should we update it? As I said, the last time we updated it was 2006. It was a comprehensive update. It was really a new plan for the community. Now, why should we update it? Well, there have been changes in state planning law. There are different requirements that have come forward since then that need to be incorporated into our general plan. And also, the community vision may have changed. And so, 10 years have passed, or actually 12 years have passed since 2006 for the update, and we need to take a look at it and see. And if the direction is appropriate, then we'll continue. And we can obviously, it basically can be a course correction. What's the process? We're looking at basically 3 large phases. The first phase, in essence, we're starting today, and that would be evaluating and setting forward this listen and learn tour. Again, what we want to do is go out to the community and listen to what they're suggesting that we do. We do need a consultant to assist us in that, and so we're starting phase 1. As Simone said, we're asking that you consider establishing a steering committee that will assist staff in this process. Phase 2 will come after phase 1. So after we've gone out to the community, this might take about a year. We'll go out to the community, we'll talk to the community, we'll listen to what they're looking for, we'll see what might need to be changed. Do we want to do a sustainability element? What does the community want the community to look like in 25 years? And then we're going to summarize that, and we're going to put that forward into phase 2, and that's when we would come back to the council and ask that they create a general plan advisory committee. That would be a much larger committee. And we'll get into that in a little more detail momentarily, but then we would take the vision that the community gives to us and through a public process, an open and transparent public process through a committee, we would then start to look at the policies and start to draft changes that would reflect the vision that we had heard about in the Listen and Learn tour. That would also include any other technical analysis that we might need to do. We're going to need to look at climate change and sea level rise. We're going to need to look at the housing element and housing needs. We're going to need to look at the fiscal impact of different land uses that we might be choosing. We're going to need to do environmental review for the various plan alternatives that we're looking to put forward. And that analysis will then help guide the committee decisions as to what direction the overall end product would look like. And then phase 3 is really bringing that end product, the new general plan update, to the commissions. And we're talking about PB&R, Planning Commission, the Harbor Commission, and then ultimately to the City Council for adoption. So this is approximately a 36-month process. It might take a little more time than that. It could potentially take less, depending upon the full scope of the update. So moving forward, I guess I've described all those 3 phases here with the graphic, but again, the Listen and Learn tour is the first, and we're starting that today. Then document development and analysis, phase 2, and then the public hearings and adoption. We do envision this to be in 2021, and the reason for that is really the housing element schedule. We have to update the housing element by October of 2021, and so we need to start that process as quickly as we can. Part of that is looking at our regional housing needs assessment that we should be receiving in early 2020. That'll be finished in the end of 2020, and that'll give us a year to complete the housing element update. All right, so phase 1, again, we're looking to form a committee. We're suggesting that 5 members of the public be identified to help the staff go forward through this process. Their role would end at the conclusion of the first phase, although they could be brought on for a longer period if desired. Qualifications, obviously we'd like to see people who have some understanding of land use planning and practical experience in planning or design. And the other one is the time commitment. There's going to be a fair amount of time involved in looking at this, and what they're basically going to be doing is looking at the RFP and helping select the consultants that are going to assist staff through and the community through this overall process. Again, review the draft RFP, take input from the public on that as well, review those proposals that we get back from the variety of consultants, and then obviously come up with a recommendation for the City Council on which consultant to pick. They would also ensure that the public outreach and the stakeholder input process, that whole phase one, is completed. And so they would help oversee that entire process. So again, they would guide us through that process. So how would this work with the community and the steering committee and staff? You know, they would basically be involving the community in these public outreach meetings. They would be implementing the public outreach program, which would be the very first item that the consultant would be assisting us in preparing. And then, again, those guidance to staff and reports to the city council ultimately. So phase two, I just want to kind of briefly go over that. The second step in phase one, is going over the RFP for the consultant, set those expectations. Scope of work is important. And again, the scope of work is just kind of an initial draft. The community is going to tell us that there may be other areas that we might need to fix and or look at. And so the scope of the individual topic areas might expand or contract as we go through this process. What we do intend to do is hold a public outreach meeting in February next month to kind of go over the RFP with the community. Again, we want to be open and transparent about it. We have a draft attached to the report for your consideration this evening. We're seeking input on that. You know, it is just a working draft that, again, will be shared with the community in a February meeting. Third step in the phase one is the consultant selection process. You know, again, we'll have that RFP out in the field. The consultants will react to that. We'll be responding to questions. We'll be bringing this forward to the steering committee for their review when those proposals come forward. And they'll be, you know, activating those outreach efforts, facilitating the community workshops, preparing the draft updates, goals, and policies as directed. Now, the actual drafts aren't going to happen until after the listen and learn process, but these are the basic components of what the consultant is going to be doing. They're going to be doing, obviously, the kinetic analysis and studies and preparing the EIR as well, or any other technical studies that we may need to do. So the overall timeline, moving forward here, we're starting here today, January 8th. We're hoping to have the steering committee maybe established at the subsequent meeting of the council this month, and then identifying those folks for council approval in February, finalizing the RFP with the steering committee's help in March. Hopefully we'll have that RFP out by the end of March, and we'll have consultant selection in May. We're looking to come back to the City Council with a consultant selection for a contract in June. And if we meet this timeline, we will need a budget amendment for what that amount would be. So hopefully we'll have that all kicked off and ready to go by July. So the listen and learn, again, this is civic engagement. We want to provide as much outreach as we can. We're going to be talking to residents and property owners, neighborhood HOAs. Your staff is going to be visiting the HOAs to provide an update and answer questions and solicit feedback. We're going to be talking to the community stakeholders and community groups. You know, we'll be sitting down and meeting with these constituents. We're going to be talking to the business community as well. Again, what we're looking to do is get a broad feedback on, you know, where the community is and where it should be going, and we're basically going to have this, you know, try to reach as many people as we possibly can. So the consultant will shape that overall effort. That's the very first item in the RFP, is really an outreach program. So we're looking for innovative ways that we can reach the broadest segment of the community, because as we know, we do hear a lot here in these chambers, but you know, a lot of times they're a minority of what the community is really thinking about. So what we want to try to do is reach the silent majority that's out there, you know, who are very busy, and we want to make sure we have an innovative program. So we're going to be doing virtual town hall meetings, public surveys, stakeholder meetings, direct one-on-one meetings, and meetings in each council district. So this is kind of an overview of what that program would be. It's not a definitive list of how it's going to be done, but I want the consultants who are experts in reaching the community and through outreach to help prepare that program and guide us through this. So the potential topics, land use and housing, traffic, mobility, sea level rise, climate change, that's a mandated requirement with new changes to state law as part of our safety element. Sustainability, that's a topic that the community, we've been hearing about, so we may or may not be doing that, but I know there are some in the community who want us to do a sustainability element, or at least policies. Environmental justice is a new topic that came from the state. We have to do environmental justice if we modify or significantly amend 2 elements of the general plan. And there may be other topics that we're going to be talking about. Again, this is just a basic list of topics. But we do view this as a comprehensive update to the general plan. I don't view it as a new plan, but again, maybe a course correction of the plan that we have today. Areas that we're going to be talking about. We're hearing a lot about the airport area, maybe a need for additional planning in the airport area. What to do with Banning Ranch, it's still a question out there. Mariners Mile, we're hearing a lot of feedback from the community about the status of the highway and land uses there. Newport Center, the Harbor and Bay, we've got a new harbor department and we have a new LCP and a Harbor and Bay element, and so these things kind of interlink with one another, and there may be some issues that we need to address there, and there may be other topics. Again, this is just kind of an initial list, and the community is going to tell us additional things that they want to be to discuss. So phase 2, again, would be formed later after the listen and learn. We think it might be about 25 community members. It could be larger, it could be smaller. It's really up to the city council and the community. For the general plan advisory committee. Excuse me. Thank you, Simone. Now this is where the work would be done. So the consultant will take the listen and learn information, and we'll have a summary of that for the community to understand and see, so that it kind of gives us a guiding document. The consultant's going to go into the general plan and start to propose different changes to reflect that vision, and then that's going to come forward to the GPAC, and that would provide a forum for everyone to discuss what those changes might be. Again, these would be noticed meetings, a Brown Act committee, so we'll have agendas, and the public will be invited to participate in this process. As I said, it would be that public forum for ongoing outreach and discussion. So anticipated costs. Right now, we think it might be $2.5 million over the course of the 3-year update. We're going to be looking for a $1.5 million allocation with the next upcoming budget. The cost of this could go up as we go forward. If the scope of the amendment goes up, we may need for additional technical studies. That cost could go up. I do anticipate the EIR alone may be costing $1 million. It's entirely possible. So I just want to let the council know that we think it'll be this, but it might be a little bit more. So the overall process, back to that slide, phase 1, we're right at the very left edge of this document. Again, we're seeking input on the selection of a steering committee, identification of one, and we're going to start with the RFP and go into the listen and learn, and we'll go from there. Again, 36 months. With that, I'll turn it over to Simone.
Thank you, Jim. Madam Mayor and City Council members, we need a little bit of direction from the council and just looking for some consensus. Want to make sure that we're ready to go ahead and initiate the general plan update process, and this is a great day and a kickoff today. We want to make sure that there's an agreement to form a steering committee, and from a staff standpoint, we think it's really important to do that. With forming a steering committee, what type of process was the council like to see, through an application process or some type of other nomination process? And how's that selection going to take place? We are planning to have a community meeting in February, so we can get feedback on the RFP, the draft RFP. And again, today is just the starting point. Is the council comfortable with staff moving forward and having that community meeting, even before a steering committee is even formed? Do we want to go ahead and start this process early, or do we want to wait till we actually have a steering committee in place before we do anything with regards to meeting with the community? So these are some of the questions we have for the council, and we'd like a little bit of direction and consensus. Go ahead, next slide, Jim. So we have our contact names up. We have a website there. It's newportbeachca.gov/GP update. The web page is down because we're going to wait for this evening to conclude, and we'll get that web page up, and we'll have this PowerPoint presentation and the draft RFP posted on the web page. Next slide. And that concludes our presentation. Happy to answer questions or listen to comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Georges and Mr. Campbell. Excellent presentation. This is a very momentous moment to commence the public discussion on our general plan update. As you mentioned, we did initiate some preliminary discussion. Even under Mayor Muldoon's term, we had talked about the general plan, and for various reasons, we've we've pushed it forward to this moment. I think it's a good time, as you've laid out the timeline over the next 3 years, and with the housing requirement mandate going to come before us in the next year or so, it's obviously going to feed into this. The most important comment I want to make overall before I ask my colleagues to speak and we go out to the public is to echo the words you've used many times in your presentation this afternoon concerning transparency, engagement, listening, learning, community. That is really the foundational element as we go forward in this general plan. Every step of the way, and I think we all will agree on this wholeheartedly, is transparency and engagement and community. And just a couple of questions I'll ask initially. The steering committee, if I understand what you suggested, would be 5 members, community members, no city council member. Is that what I understand?
And that's our recommendation, not to have city council members part of this steering committee.
Similarly with the full GPAC committee?
Correct. The city council is the final authority on deciding what the general plan is going to look like. And we feel that it's a community-based document, and the community so members of the GPAC should just be community members. And they could be commissioners. They could be harbor commissioners, planning commissioners. But we don't recommend the city council members to be part of the GPAC.
Okay, I support that. I think this will be a community-based effort organizationally and deliberatively and structurally. It sounds good to me. If Mr. Campbell, could you just explain to me what environmental justice means? What does that element mean?
Well, that's a good term. It's a good question, actually. A lot of times it's actually more akin to social justice, and that is a slightly different term, but it actually doesn't have the same meaning under state law. I'm going to stammer through this because I didn't read it this afternoon, but in essence, we want to make sure we're not, if we have disadvantaged communities in town, communities of color or communities of limited means, we don't want to put all of the environmental problems that the community might create in those areas, and we in essence want to spread it around. I know that's a very bad characterization of all of that, but it is definitely something that we need to address either through an element or through policies of the general plan in the various elements. And so I don't have a preconceived idea of actually how to address it in this community here, but it is something if we amend substantively 2 elements, we must address environmental justice.
Okay, thank you. Let me turn it over to my colleagues, Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill.
Sure. So I want to make sure I'm understanding the steering committee idea as well. So this is a study session, so we can't take any action out of it anyway. So the idea would be to bring back a resolution at the next meeting authorizing the steering committee, and I assume the steering committee would have an end date, given that it's a committee. So that end date for that particular committee would be at the end of the first phase of the RFP, which is the listen and learn phase.
That's our recommendation, is to go ahead and sunset that steering committee. The committee members, I'm sure they're engaged and want to continue with the process. They can be part of the GPAC, but our recommendation will be to sunset that steering committee after phase 1.
Okay. So we would have, at our next meeting, we'd have a resolution on the city council packet that would authorize the steering committee. And then it seems to make sense on this one to make sure we're getting up to speed and going along quickly, that if we're having 5, we should, if we have applications in, we should give a timeline for the applications, have the mayor make recommendations and bring it back for the February 12th meeting then? Is that the idea?
I want to say from a timeline standpoint, that sounds plausible.
Okay. And then, Mr. Harp, can we have the mayor sit in at least as an ex officio on the steering committee? So not that we would have a council member voting, but at least the mayor who's making the choice or making the recommendations would also be at least there to listen and also help report back.
I think that'd be appropriate. One thing I wanted to mention under Council Policy A2, as far as selection of members to be on the committee, it typically provides for 2 weeks prior to the date of appointment a recommendation from the ad hoc committee to the city council. So I don't know if you want to do anything with the timeline. It sounds like there may be some meetings in February that you want to adjust as far as selection and appointment.
Yeah, I suppose at some point we'll have to do a straw vote up here, but my suggestion would be at least to waive that, but at least give a week for the applications to be produced, so that the mayor has the opportunity to review and then submit in. Because I mean, at the end of the day, the council would be approving the membership of the steering committee anyway, if that's how I'm understanding the process here.
Yes, and then typically the ad hoc committee is composed of a total of 3 council members. I don't know if you want to make any adjustments to that either.
You mean the ad hoc for review of the applications?
That's right.
Oh, I'm not sure. I mean, I'd be okay with the mayor just reviewing, but okay, sure. All right. Okay, mayor and one other member. Anyway, but we can make that decision at the next meeting when we're passing the resolution, I assume.
Yes, but just so we get you back what you are looking for, it'd be helpful to have some guidance from the city council.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yes, I would say after we hear from the public, after we hear from the council, then we hear from the public, and then we'll continue to refine our directive to staff. Mr. Herdman.
Thank you, Mayor. Could you go back to the slide that had the questions on it in terms of wanting feedback from us? I believe there were 3 or 4. Okay. First of all, from a document that I received this afternoon, in fact, all of us received this afternoon, there's a question that's being asked about the Listen and Learn tour. Wouldn't it be safe to say, or accurate to say, that one of the purposes of the Listen and Learn tour is to educate staff and to educate the steering committee on the extent of what this general plan update might look like? Isn't that one decision that might come out of that?
That's correct, Councilmember Herdman, yes.
All right. Okay, just wanted to provide clarification on that. Okay. As far as agreeing to initiate the general plan update, absolutely 100%. The steering committee idea sounds fine. As far as member selection process is concerned, I don't think we should deviate from the practice that we've always had regarding commissions, committees, boards. It should be an application process. And as far as the selection of those people, I don't think we should deviate from that either, as far as having 3 council members involved in that process. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Ms. Brenner.
Thank you. Let me turn on my mic. My questions are, first of all, about the RFP. Staff is going to develop that as far as what we're looking for in a consultant, and does the council have a chance to review that or add or make suggestions to that?
Yes, absolutely. We have a draft right now. It's a working draft, and so we're going to take that to the community and get some input. We'll take input tonight if you like. The steering committee is going to be looking at that as well, and so through that process, we'll have a final RFP, and we're going to bring that back to the city council for your review and approval before we send it out to the community, or send it out to the consulting world for bids.
Okay, and my other question is, I'm used to being on the other side over here and being at all those community meetings. So what is the position for a council member as far as attending these community meetings and being able to hear from the public what they actually are thinking?
Councilmember Brenner, thank you for that question. That's a really important topic and subject. From a staff standpoint, we look at the council as that final review authority. You have the final say. I think it's important that the council members are not fully in the weeds as far as we go through these community processes. I understand that council members may want to attend some of those community meetings, but it needs to be community-based. It needs to be focused on the community, and your role is going to be a little bit different, I think, as a council member now. I think we're just in a better position if the council members aren't in the kind of the details or the weeds of the process.
Okay. I just want to make sure that I am able to vote intelligently when the time comes, that I fully understand. So anytime we can be included as a silent member, I would appreciate any of those opportunities.
Of course.
Excuse me, let me just clarify. I mean, it's a public meeting, that if a council member wants to sit in and listen, I don't see anything inappropriate with that unless there's some Brown Act issue if more than 3 or 4 of us attend, correct?
Yeah, so typically under the Brown Act, you can attend meetings of the nature of the steering committee or other meetings. It's just your participation that's limited. So we can go over the details if you would like to attend, but there are some Brown Act issues there.
Any more questions? Okay, Mr. Avery.
Thank you. About how many RFPs would we expect? Proposals coming in.
Proposals? Well, I'm hoping that we would get a half a dozen. We might not, but a half a dozen would be a great number to get.
Right, and then would staff also kind of sort of review those as well, or as they're coming in? I imagine there's some involvement of staff on that.
Absolutely. The staff will look at them, the steering committee will look at them, and then ultimately we'll make a recommendation to the council. That'll be a kind of a joint recommendation.
Great. And then how do we handle what the state pushes down on us? In terms of, have we got some people on staff, or do we have some people that have the expertise, sort of, this is going to be an impact on this plan, right? A significant impact potentially? Mandated?
Yes.
You're talking about RENA?
Yes.
Well, yes. We will make sure that the end result of the update is consistent with the requirements of state law. So there will be some things in there that the state is promulgating that we might need to address. How we address it is really our own, but there are some minimum requirements that we have to do, and we'll put those in there. We can try to identify those as we go forward. Hopefully, they won't be very painful, but we will make sure that the update is consistent with the law at the time that we had passed the update.
And along the way, we can educate people on what that's all about. So that's sort of a new wrinkle.
Yeah, that is the part of the listen and learn tour as well, is to, we're going to be listening, but we're going to be learning, but we're also going to try to be educating, and that may be kind of another component of that whole process is we want to let people know why we're doing this. Why are we updating the housing element? Well, it's
Right.
required, and we can provide that summary and provide that background information so folks can then give us what they're thinking in relation to that. So it's going to be a two-way street about the listening and learning.
And the sense of the possible scale of what that might produce.
In my mind, I think the overall scope of the update is unlimited. We can update as much of the document as we feel is appropriate. We obviously need to meet the minimum requirements of the state, but we can change all of it if we wanted to.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I was actually going to piggyback on Mr. Avery's points. The first one is the folks probably remember when we had talked about this a year and a half ago or so. One of the big issues and concerns voiced here and out in the public was the RENA number and how that would potentially cause a problem if we'd initiated and then finalized, got through the EIR, and then suddenly got an RENA number that threw our housing element out of whack. That would greatly disturb all the others as a cascade effect. So this timeline looks good, but the other the question I had, and I'm going to follow up on Mr. Herdman's point, which was a question about the sequencing, how much of this we need to be doing, and when we go out to public, having that conversation. Fill in the gaps on what I'm about to say. So I recall we have to do the housing element, and if we do the housing element and also circulation, for example, which I fully anticipate we'd need to do with a housing element update, we then have to do environmental justice. And if I recall correctly, if we touch 2 and then we have to do more, and if we do 3 or 4, we have to do the other elements as well. And so that's what I recall, the cascading effect of you pick this up, then this, then this, then this. So could you fill in the gaps on what we would have to do if we touch each element?
Sure. There's one element that's mandated to be updated in 2021, and that's the housing element. So you're right, we're going to have the Regional Housing Needs Assessment coming down from SCAG in February of 2020. There'll be an appeal process. By October of 2020, we're going to have our number solid, and we have to plan for that number. What that really means is we have to have zoning for that level of units. We have a lot of identified sites in the housing element to accommodate many thousands of units, but a lot of those sites are going to have to be pulled out. So I don't want to get too much into the weeds of the housing element, but we have to go through that process. Now that might start to look at the land use element and changing the land use element in concert with that. The two work hand in hand, as you know. Now, the circulation element is completely out of date. It needs a complete rewrite. We've got to deal with what's called complete streets. We've also got issues of the master plan highways, Coast Highway, Bluff Road, and 19th Street Bridge over at the western edge of town. So that's going to be a complete rewrite. Now, as you said, there's a cascade effect. As soon as you touch two elements in any substantive way, you have to do environmental justice. When you do the housing element, again, this is part of the cascade effect, there's been three changes to state law. One that requires us to address flooding hazards. Another one addresses wildland fires. Another one that requires that we address climate change. And the triggers for that are when we do the housing element or when we update our local hazards mitigation plan. So right now our safety element is pretty good, but we haven't addressed climate change fully. And so in order to deal with that, that's going to be a major rewrite of the safety element, and it's going to get us into all of those issues related to climate change, wildland fire interfaces, we're talking about sea level rise. So there's a lot of meat on that one. So ultimately, when you think about all of the change I've just described, it's pretty comprehensive. Now, we might not change the recreation element in any substantive way. We might go in there and clean it up to make it internally consistent, but I don't envision a lot of change in that element. But again, the scope of all the changes are going to be largely driven by what the community wants us to do. And another area is sustainability. I'm not sure what the community thinks sustainability means to them, but we can address that through either an element or we can put in policies and various elements that address that question. So hopefully that answers your question. If not, I'll talk longer.
No, that's enough. Thank you.
Ms. Brenner.
I'm especially interested in how the consultant is chosen. So is that staff and the steering committee that reviews the applicants and makes the recommendation to us, or when does the council get involved in which consultant is actually chosen?
Initially, staff will look at the proposals. We're going to then engage and have a meeting with the steering committee and get their input, so they're obviously going to be reviewing them as well. You know, we'll be making a recommendation for a selection to the steering committee, and they'll make a recommendation to the city council. And you'll have all of that information in your packet when we come to you as a body to select a consultant and enter into an agreement with the consultant.
And maybe if I could add, the selection process will be pretty vigorous. You know, typically it's not just a proposal that we're reviewing. We actually have consultants that come in and sit down with us, and we go through an interview process. And that's one of the reasons why we're asking to form a steering committee, is to be that sounding board for staff. So it's not just staff's responsibility to make this judgment call. It's also this outside body of residents who have a connection to the community that can make that decision and that make a recommendation to the council. So it's going to be a vigorous process. And then finally, we'll come to you, the city council, with the recommendation of who we think is the top pick.
Mr. Herdman.
Every single step of this is so important and so critical. 2 years ago, Simone, when you came to us with a proposal for launching a general plan update, the plan at that point in time looked much different than it does now. And I'm wondering why. What changed?
I don't, and I'll disagree a little bit, Councilmember Herman. I don't think the plan has changed. I think we've done a different way of presenting it to you this evening. We've kind of broken it up into phases. We've kind of streamlined it and simplified it, that this first year is just listening tour. Second year is the document preparation. So we've always talked about a general plan update. I think we've just had enough time to understand how we're going to go forward with it. And what's the easiest process and what's the most practical process. And again, general plan are a community-based document, and it's all about the people. And we have to make sure that the public is fully engaged, that the residents have a chance to share their ideas. And I think from a staff standpoint, we've had 2 years to kind of think that through.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. That's what I was hoping. That's how I was hoping you would respond. I don't want to monopolize them. I think that's it.
Well, let me just follow up on that. If my memory serves me correctly, when we did discuss this a year ago, clearly I think we all heard, I know I heard from the community, they wanted what we now describe as a listen and learn. So before we dive into, let's revise the general plan, let's spend whatever time it's necessary, and it looks like we're giving a good 6 to 8 months or longer. I mean, will evolve as we go forward. There's no magic ending date on the listen and learn. You do mention in the staff report there could be upwards of 50 meetings, I believe you estimated. Is that correct? Did I read that right?
That's correct.
So I think I commend staff for incorporating a lot of the feedback and input we had from the community of wanting to be engaged in this process, and I think you have you fulfilled that in drawing out this explanation. The timeline. One question I have that has really not been addressed, we've talked a lot, that's going to be a heavy use of staff, need a consultant, heavy involvement of the community. I know we, in the last 2 years in the city, your department has been going through an extremely busy time. There are more permits, building permits, residential and commercial permits in active status than any time in our history, I think. How are we going to peacefully coexist with the ongoing demands of your department and the huge demands of managing a general plan update? Albeit you have an outside consultant, but I know Mr. Campbell's very busy, you're very busy. How are you going to allocate staff resources?
So that's a really good question. We've been really kind of focusing and studying that. You know, I think for us, as me as the director, you know, I have to be able to juggle all these priorities. We're going to dedicate at least one full-time staff member to the general plan process. The workload doesn't come all at once. The workload increases over time, and we get busier and busier as more we get through this process. We will dedicate one individual. We are going to rely on our consultants to do a lot of the heavy lifting. In addition, we're going to look at how do we become much more efficient with some of the processes. You know, we don't want to jump in and ask the council for more staff. That's not how we approach the operations of the business. We are more of, we're going to plan ahead. We're going to dedicate one individual. We're going to juggle some of the workload, and we're going to see how it goes. You know, if we get to a point where we think that we need additional staff or resources, then I'll have that conversation with the city manager. And then we could see whether we bring in some contract staff to help us through those kind of tough periods.
But the underlying question, too, is maintaining the excellent response work that your department does to serve the community and our commercial and residential interests to make sure their building projects are proceeding.
And that's not going to change at all.
Okay. All right. So that's the assurance to the community.
Right, and I think if I can just add too,
Sure.
we need to make sure the service levels are appropriate and we're staffed to that, so we'll be very mindful of that. And then we have to acknowledge this is going to be the highest priority for this department, so to the extent other projects or other commitments come up, we have to see, is it something that we're going to have to take and delay a little bit or lengthen the time, or do we add additional resources? So we'll have to have that balancing question.
Well, let's make sure we communicate on any
Absolutely.
of these exigencies
Right.
as they arise. Any more comments from up here?
Contract staff would be used for providing services as opposed to you working on the general plan update?
I think it's a possibility.
Okay.
You know, contract staff can be used in a kind of a short period of time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's open it up for the public. Please come forward. If there are a number of you, if you'd kind of form a line or be prepared to stand at either podium, let's open it up for public comment. Please come forward. Thank you. State your name, if you would, please.
Thank you. Chuck Fancher. My wife and I live in Jasmine Creek.
You're talking to the mic there.
My name is Chuck Fancher. My wife and I live in Jasmine Creek. I have an intuitive thought as I listen tonight to this discussion setting the stage for the update. And that is that if the process succeeds in involving the community in depth, and the process and the product is a very complicated, important game plan for the future of this community, and we have a staff that is definitely very capable, but it's going to be stretched in terms of their capabilities, a consultant whose job isn't to herd the cats in the process, but to guide the mechanical components that are being reviewed and discussed. I think it's important that the council make sure that there is a gatekeeper involved in this process. I don't think it can be the staff. They have to be neutral, but a presence either from the council or the planning commission or elsewhere that makes sure that the divergent forces that are going to be voiced in this process are kept on tact, and that we don't diverge into a lot of just discussion that goes from one end of the spectrum to the other, but it's focused. We're going to have people who believe that this community should not ever change. It needs to be kept the way it was. And we're going to have people who believe it needs to change and grow or die. And that's going to require a gatekeeper to keep everybody on tact. I suggest you consider that as you put your process together.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is Linda Watkins, and in science, in specifically physics and biology, there's a rule that initial conditions determine how things will end up. And so when I saw the criteria for selection of the steering committee, it concerned me. We've had in Southern California, and especially Orange County, we've had a development mindset for a great many years, which worked when there were acres and acres of orange trees. But then there wasn't any more acreage, and so we decided to go up. Anyway, we all are not quite aware of how much that development mindset influences us. So when I saw the list of criteria, when it said somebody with land use planning, somebody with architectural planning, so that kind of background, I was looking for someone who could think out of the box, who might come up with some innovation or some interesting ideas, some who could challenge the status quo, so that we can think differently about how this develops. And this goes into the pushback from the community, because while we want progress, we also want character and charm, and to keep our community. And so, anyway, I would hope that you put some other criteria in your selection of the steering committee, so there's some humanity in it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Well, I agree with what you just said, what I could hear of it. I'm hard of hearing, so forgive me if I...
You want to state your name, please?
Elaine Linhoff, I'm sorry. I also was concerned about the criterion for the steering committee that's going to select the consultant, because one of those criteria that I read was that they had to have experience in planning or something. I can't remember the exact words, but that means to me, a professional that's in the building industry. You're going to end up with a committee that's going to select a consultant who is development-minded, has a bend towards development, because the people that select it are all developers or architects or planners or whatever. And you're going to end up with the same kind of consultant, and then the consultants shape the way the listen and learn is going to be handled. I remember one meeting I went to that was a community outreach meeting. We were not allowed to state what we wanted. We could only choose between two things that the staff or the consultant had proposed. To me, that's not, that's bias. You're going to get a biased plan that looks like the community is for it, and I don't like that. So I think your criterion, you should have at least one person who is not development-minded on the steering committee to select the consultant, and then be very sure that when the steering committee, the big 25-member steering committee is formed, that it is balanced between those who want to make Newport Beach a metropolis with skyscrapers, and those of us who want to keep it a nice beach community. I'm not happy with the Planning Commission because planning commissioners are all development-minded. There are planning commissioners. They are appointed because they understand floor area ratio and blah, blah, blah. I can just tell you from experience that it doesn't take that long to learn. So, sorry.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Mayor Dixon and council members. My name is Dorothy Krause, and I'm the Vice President of the community-based group Still Protecting Our Newport. SPAWN has been involved in land use issues for nearly 45 years, focusing on educating and raising community awareness of what makes our town so special. The decisions made by the future of our community impact all of our lives. That's why SPAWN remains engaged. SPAWN has been hosting workshops for more than a year to improve citizen engagement in anticipation of this process. Through expert speakers, attendees have learned about planning, participation, and tools. I will outline a few initial steps that the city can take now to design a general plan the community can rally around. Some of these things have been touched in the excellent report conducted by staff in the presentation. These suggestions are really on the execution side of this. So first, SPAWN urges the city to focus on community-led process that reveals the vision and priorities of the residents now and in the future. This step ensures the community engages as partners and not outsiders, as many felt happened in 2006. The city of Brea just completed its Brea Envisions process, which focused on just that, community values and priorities. Second, we implore the city to create a transparent, inclusive, and open process. There are tools available, such as resources from the Institute for Local Government on inclusive public engagement. There are also leadership academies offered through Pepperdine School of Public Policy to improve the engagement skills of elected leaders. Third, the city should ask the residents what's working and what isn't working. Specifically, where is the controversy? What policies need to be updated? Are there specific areas of the city that are of genuine concern to the residents? Fourth, it is important to have a comprehensive, data-driven plan. I have not heard that tonight. A comprehensive, data-driven plan, one that includes accurate baseline of information on housing, traffic, schools, safety, water, and parks. And this information needs to be kept up to date and easily accessible to the public so that future planning decisions are not hindered or questioned due to outdated baselines. Finally, there are many new tools used by communities for general plan updates. For example, Urban Footprint is a tool that helps planners understand the needs of the community and aims to create sustainable cities. Another example is CrowdBright, which is a cloud-based tool assisting cities in how to plan and implement their community through robust participation of residents. Cities have the capability of providing something for everybody, only because and only when they are created by everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next comment, please.
Nancy Gardner. When we did the general plan in 2006, we had a very large, diverse committee, and we did a lot of community outreach. When it came to Measure Y, we had a very small, one-sided committee and almost no outreach, and we saw the difference. One was passed with comfortable numbers, one went down in flames. This is looking very much like the first approach. A lot of community outreach, and I am convinced that you will use your best judgment and create a steering committee that is balanced and will be a very good first step to what should be a very good process. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from the public?
Mayor Dixon and members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. As the Community Development Department personnel told you, this actually is very similar to the proposal you heard a year ago. I had some trouble understanding the correctness of what you heard a year ago. I have some trouble with this also. A big component of it is the listen and learn. One hopes in a listen and learn you're actually learning something, so you don't quite know what you're going to be doing in those last 2 phases before you've completed the first phase. And yet the proposal here is immediately for this steering committee to select a consultant who is going to be the consultant for everything, who we're committing millions of dollars to. I would think that you want to bifurcate the process at the very least. And if the staff needs a consultant to conduct the listen and learn, a year ago they told you they could do it on their own. Apparently now they need a consultant, but it should be a consultant for that process. And in that process, you'll learn what you want the remaining 2 years of the process to be. And only then can you intelligently formulate an RFP for that second consultant. So I'm having that trouble with the logic. And during the listen and learn thing, among things that need to be fleshed out, as I pointed out to you in writing, is how this entire update process is going to dovetail with our city charter and its green light provision that it has in it. As Ms. Gardner perhaps did not state totally correctly, the 2006 process, which actually started in 2000, ended in the voters having to approve new development limits under green light, a new table. It did not pass really easily. It squeaked by with 53.6% of the vote. And as she told you, the second effort to update the general plan ended in the green light thing being totally rejected by the public. 69.2% voted against it. And I don't think you want to enter into a process right now where you're committing to something. You don't know quite how that's going to work. Is it going to come out that you're going to be changing these tables or not? And in the end, find that it gets rejected by the voters. So I think you want to proceed cautiously, and I think you want to do it in separate steps, not commit right now to a single consultant to do everything, telling them in advance. Like Ms. Linhoff said, in a previous visioning, she had been given 2 choices only. In this case, you're kind of only given 1. And during that listen and learn, maybe you will learn there are other ways to approach this. And that will affect what you want to do in the later phases. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Please come forward.
Hi there. Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Charles Klobe. I'm a resident of Newport Heights and a board member of the Newport Heights Improvement Association. Today I'm speaking as an individual member, however, or as an individual resident. I read Jim Mosher's well-researched letter to you regarding this process, which he touched on again minutes ago. His attention to detail is remarkable and a benefit to Newport Beach residents. I agree with his general theme that the beginning of this process looks a lot like they have in the past. Now, I'll deviate from the letter that I wrote you earlier today and say, I'm encouraged by what I heard from staff today, which is different than the staff report I read. But this process does not need to go that quickly. If it takes time to choose, to make decisions, take it slowly. Because as many have said, the risk is not worth it. Go slow. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Mayor Dixon and members of the council. My name is Nancy Skinner. I agree with the gentleman that just spoke. It's one thing I just get the sense that there's this big rush, and I hope that that is not the case. But I do want to say, in my opinion, and I missed a little bit, unfortunately, I missed the presentation, so I don't know if you've already covered this, but I hope that the listen and learn part is a very slow and hugely involved from a lot of people wherever you do this. And I think to do that, you're going to have to prepare to do advertising in the papers and social media and other things to let people know about it, because our city is not great on reading the papers, in my opinion anyway, except those of us that are super involved. But it's extremely important to really hear what is going on, and I hope in the process of doing that, it won't be the kind of format that we are here tonight, where you're all sitting up there and we're here. I hope it's kind of a larger, that's what they did in the past, a larger room, and where people could walk around and talk to with one another or whatever. And I certainly also hope, although Mr. Harp isn't here right now, that all of you are eligible to come to all of the meetings if you wish. I would like to see that. I think it should be that way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next comment, please. Just in time.
Yes, well, I'm a little like Cinderella. I don't get to leave work until all the work is done, but no glass slipper, no pretty dresses. Okay, so my name is Susan Skinner, and I'm here tonight to ask you to make a commitment to complete transparency as we enter the general plan update. In 2014, the general plan was revised. Feedback was obtained from residents that overwhelmingly reflected the desire to avoid more traffic and development. But despite this feedback, the 2014 general plan added huge amounts of new development. I'm sorry, I'm out of breath because I was running in here. Under green light rules, new development to this degree has to be approved by the voters. So the 2014 general plan required an election. However, if you were considering your vote in 2014, you would have had no idea that you were voting for additional traffic and development, since the ballot summary and the so-called impartial analysis written by City Attorney Aaron Harp simply asked if residents wanted to reduce traffic and development. What the 2014 general plan actually did was remove development rights that were not built and would never be built, and added extensive development rights that would certainly have been built, creating traffic and density that would have affected residents daily. At its best, the 2014 general plan was disingenuous, and at its worst, deceitful. Residents felt tricked, and it went down in flames in the election. As we approach the upcoming general plan update, we are all quite a bit wiser about this process. We're also concerned that we not have a repeat of 2014. You have an opportunity tonight to reassure us and dial down some of that apprehension and mistrust by making a commitment here tonight that the ballot summary of this general plan update will contain complete information regarding the added traffic and development included in the general plan, so that this time voters fully understand what they are voting for. My ask tonight is for a commitment to that level of transparency. May I have that commitment from you tonight? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Please come forward.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. My name is Ashley Patton. I'm a resident of Corona Del Mar. Had one question jump out at me during the presentation, which Councilmember Brennan brought up, which was your all participation and presence at the Listen and Learn meetings. And the previous Ms. Skinner, I think, also mentioned that. I don't see how that process can be effective whatsoever if you all aren't there on a regular basis, side by side with the members of the community. I understand there may be some legalities of the concentration of you at any given meeting, but I would ask that you all be as present as possible, not only in your own districts, but in everybody's district. If it gets reduced to a staff report of what the sentiment of your constituents are, you will not have the essence of people's preferences, emotions, and true desires and needs for how this general plan turns out. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments? Please come forward.
I haven't written this out, just so you know. And I have a tendency to ramble on, and I apologize in advance. And welcome, City Council members.
Please state your name.
My name is Carol Ann Drew. I live at 420 Kings Road, and I'm 75 years old. And I feel a little strange about hearing about application for people on the steering committee when it sounded remarkably like we were going to take some people from the staff, and then I got this horrible feeling that the rest would be developers and it wouldn't be actual community members. And if that is in fact true, then I'd like to have a conversation with all of you at one time or another in your office, because I think the steering committee should be actively part of the community. I've been a part of the community for 38 years. A lot of these people that have been in here have been part of this community. And although some of our visions are short-sighted, some of them aren't. So I would like some reassurance that the actual community will be part of this steering committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any more comments? Please come forward. And if not, we will close public comments and come back to the dais. Let me make, excuse me, a few comments and open it up to my colleagues. First of all, this is the beginning of the listen and learn, and thank you, those of you who spoke and those of you who have written for your input. And we listen and we learn from all of you. So thank you for your commitment to this process. And let me just restate for some of you who may have come in a little later, but just from the earlier comments, just so we are literally all on the same page. The general plan is a document created and established by the community, for the community, by the community and for the community and with the community. So that will be the essence of this document. The document does not exist without the public's input of your thoughts, your ideas, and most important, your vision of the future. This is your document. And to the best of everyone's ability, from the community to the staff to the council, it's going to be a process of assimilation and distillation and synthesis, but it will be done in a transparent, public, and open manner. We all, as residents, all of us, must take an active part in defining what is the future of our city. And as we embark on this truly important endeavor, I want to stress again that the importance, this is a community-based document, and the process of developing it will be inclusive of everyone and transparent as we move forward. And I believe we all agree that inclusiveness and transparency will create the best result for all of us in our city. And as was mentioned, but I will reiterate again, there is no bell that's going to ring to say that we're done. We will take every necessary step, whether it's 50 or 60 meetings and over a 6-month, 9-month, 12-month, 15-month process, we will do what is ever necessary to get the job done correctly, inclusively, and transparently. So, having said that, let me try to synthesize and distill what we've heard so far in terms of our next steps, and I'll open it up to my colleagues. So this is what I heard, and this is giving a study session to recommend as staff goes forward to the next meeting. I propose the following structure of the steering committee, composed of 5 community members. And my definition of community members means residents of whatever period of time. If they're a resident of this community, they are a community member. And they would be appointed through this process that has been described. There will be an application process to be managed by the city clerk, and then the mayor will appoint a review committee of those applicants, and then subsequently nominate 5 community members, residents, to come back to the council at the February 12th meeting, I believe it will be. So they will all be in the public agenda for that meeting. And the steering committee will be open to applications in a period to be determined by the city clerk, and I'm sure she'll explain that at some point. As I see it, the primary responsibilities of the steering committee will be, as stated previously, to create the RFP for the outside consultant, and there will be several, we hope, outside consultants, to review and interview the firms that apply, to make a recommendation to the city council, to commence the listen and learn community engagement process once the consultant comes on board. Now, Simone, I believe you mentioned too, we may not need to wait until May to start the listen and learn. I mean, you've talked about having the first meeting in February, for example, that would involve the community. So that can happen without the consultant, and we can certainly start to the extent that we can manage that process. I don't see any reason why we can't. And the duration of the listen and learn is to when we feel we've listened and learned, and we can self-describe the conclusion of that process. There is no bell that will ring and say we're done until we decide all of us feel that we have explored this fully. And the steering committee will sunset after the listen and learn process, and the members of the steering committee are fully encouraged, if they so desire, to apply to participate in the General Planning Advisory Committee. And that will go through a second application and selection process. And they could serve on that 25 to 30 member committee. And that's to be determined. As we go forward during the year, there'll be decisions like this. How many members of the GPAC committee will there be? So that's how I've summed up. My colleagues, I'll open it up to you. I see Mr. Herdman, if you'd like to comment.
I would. There seemed to be a little confusion out there, I think, this evening regarding the specific qualifications and charge of the steering committee members, the 5 steering committee members. There is nothing in our staff report that talks about that. So I just want to clear that up, okay? Whatever you have, those of you out there who have been reading about the qualifications of our steering committee members, I've never seen it, okay? Qualifications of steering committee members.
I think, Mr. Herdman, that in the PowerPoint there was, why don't you restate that, Mr. Campbell, if you just want to clarify what was said. And again, they're not requirements, they're just descriptors.
Where did we have that? Sorry, let me get back to it. One more, 2 more.
One thing
there we go.
One thing we could do in the resolution that forms is make it very broad. That's just a citizen of the community, as opposed to putting very specific criteria into it, if that would be helpful to the council.
Okay, I see where you're coming from now. All right. I think that's it. I'm just really excited about this process. I share your excitement, Simone and Jim, and I'm very pleased with what I've seen this evening. Mayor Dixon, your summary and everything is excellent of the whole process. Let's get started. Let's go.
Okay. Mr. Muldoon.
Thank you. I was waiting to hear from public comments before I ask some questions. Can we pull the slide up that shows the estimated timeline from start to finish?
Certainly. There we go. Approximately 36 months.
Now, who here was here in 2006? I was in high school. So, is anyone here? Not seriously, I was in law school. But is anyone on staff? Was anyone here in 2006? You were Mr. Campbell.
Oh, yes. We have several staff members who were here in 2006.
Excellent. Now, Nancy Gardner, thank you.
Nancy was here, yes.
Nancy Gardner had mentioned the time period in which it took from start to finish. What was your recollection of how long it took? Or do you have knowledge of how long it took?
Well, we started the selection. We started with an update committee and then an advisory committee. We started that process really in 2002, with my recollection. It was a 4-year process. Again, that was a brand new plan. We'd like to think we'll be a little more efficient than that. This is really kind of predicated off of trying to get that housing element done by the end of 2021. Pieces of this could take longer. You know, again, this is, we have to get the housing element done, and we're going to do that. We're going to turn it on time in October of 2021. That's the only reason it says 36 months, but it can take longer.
So I remember speaking about this last time. The housing element must be done essentially in coordination with receiving of the RENA numbers.
Correct.
Before a date certain, which is
October of 2021.
And there's no leniency. There's no, if we commence the process, that we can do it some date after. I ask because I think slow is the appropriate way as well. And if there's some way that we could stretch this out so that no one feels rushed, I think that'd be a more consensus. I don't know. I'm perhaps you've already researched it as nausea, and you know, but
well, we can look at that. We definitely want to be compliant with state law in this regard. If there is room for additional time, we'll look at that question. We're hopeful that we don't need to have additional time, but if we do, we'll bring that back forward through the process as we go forward.
as you look at this outline, aside from the housing component that we're speaking about, is there any part that you think in an ideal world would be longer?
That would be longer?
That you would have more time?
I can't pick any particular component of the general plan that I think should take longer. I mean, I think we should take as much time as the community needs so that everyone is well informed. The housing element is really the only one that's a mandatory timeline. The rest of it, I think the linkage between housing and the land use element are important to understand, because I think we're going to need to make changes to both at the same time. And so it really means we're going to have to formulate that plan, what the housing element's going to say, and a lot of what those housing opportunities are in the general plan, probably as early as October of 2020. We'll know what our draft RENA will be in February of 2020. That whole summer is going to be an evaluation process where communities can in essence peel the numbers that they're getting. What we envision is, if Irvine says, hey, we can't take 5,000 units and we're only going to take 4, and then SCAG's going to say, hey, we got to take those 1,000 units and give them to somebody else, and they might give them to us. A lot of that could occur in that summer. So by by October of 2020, SCAG promises us a final RENA number. And with that, we'll work that number into our plan, and we'll have a fairly limited window to get it done. I have to be honest with you.
So, and for those in the audience, SCAG is?
Southern California Area Governments. It's an association of the city governments, and they're charged with establishing what the regional housing needs assessment is in concert with the state of California.
And they deal with transportation as well?
They also deal with transportation as well, and we're working with their team right now on a variety of the regional transportation plan update, sustainable communities plan update, and these are all components that kind of build with the RENA, and we account for these in our planning documents.
So in your opinion, this is adequate time to handle all the procedural and report requirements?
I think we can do it. I think we're going to have to start early on the draft RENA numbers, because, again, if we have a housing element and a land use element that are kind of tied together with the overall project, we have to go then do an EIR on that, and we have to look at what other alternatives we might want to look at. And so that process, doing an EIR, can take upwards of a year, and with a complex project like this, it's going to take possibly a little bit longer. So if we get our final numbers in October, getting our entire plan on top of this done with an EIR for adoption, it can be done. It's going to be challenging, but I think we're going to have to start a little bit ahead of time with the draft numbers.
All right, so what I would like when you come back is what leeway we have, if any, on those RENA numbers, and what are the consequences. Perhaps there are no real consequences, which means we don't have to feel the pressure and we can take our time. And if there are any alternative ways of packaging, like perhaps if it's a phase 1 of the general plan, phase 2, just so that we can copy the success, although narrow success, of the 2006 general plan update. Thank you.
Mr. Avery.
Jim, there will be some demands for housing from the RENA numbers, right? We expect that.
We do. Our current RENA for this housing cycle was 5 units. We expect it to be much higher than that. I don't know what it will be. It could be 500. It could be 1,500. I don't think it'll be 1,500, but it could be anywhere in there. I just don't know what it will be.
Right. Yeah. So we just have to be ready when those numbers come down to react. And
yeah, we are working in concert with their staff. They have various meetings we attend. We've provided them data on our general plan and our housing already as sort of the baseline information as they go forward, and we're commenting on their plans as we're provided the opportunity. Right. And so when we have an idea as to what it might be, we'll react to that, and we might bring updates back to the council and to the steering committee or GPAC at the time. Because a lot of that information is going to be kind of in flux and evolving as we go forward, and we'll present that information, what we know, as we go forward.
Great, thank you. I would just like to say further, in general, I think everyone up on this dais is sensitive to what everyone said tonight, and so I think whoever is selected for the steering committee, everyone will know who they are. And so there'll be a sense of whether that's going to work for the community or not, I would expect. But I think there'll be qualified people, and there'll be thoughtful people. And I think it was really good input tonight from the community about that, the sensitivity to who was actually selected on the steering committee. And but I suspect that we'll get to a committee that will do a good job, and I know we'll have a lot of people watching this process, which is really, really important that the community is engaged. And I think council said that every time that there's been a general plan, but we seem to have a more engaged community now, which is really great. And then I would just like to say that I've learned that, and I think everyone knows, that staff is really performance driven. They're just under so much pressure. They have to have timelines. They've got to have goals. It's just the way they work, and it's up to us on the dais. It's up to hear from the community. Go, wait, can we slow this down? Can we take this? And we know that can happen, but I know I'm guilty of just all of a sudden they turn around and staff is marching because they've got to actually do the work, and the work has to get done. And it's up to me as a council person, when I've got something going on in my district or something, to pay enough attention to not let it roll past the point that I'm comfortable with. So that's up to all of us. Certainly everyone on this dais understands that. But I have a good feeling about this, primarily because of some changes. And I think we've got a much more engaged community. So speaking just for myself, I'm excited. Got a good shot at doing a great job here. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Brenner.
I'd just like to say that from my standpoint, I think that there have been some important lessons learned for the council. And as it stands right now, I feel like we have to give the process a chance. We have to try to all approach this together. It's not an adversarial relationship. It's something that we really want to be engaged with the community. And I personally know I want feedback from our community. We have such an important resource in our community members that have expertise that we have no idea about. And we've already encountered some of those people that have expertise in the planning process. And so I think that I really feel like we're all on the same page on this, and that we're moving forward in a really collaborative way. That being said, my one question that was brought up by Elaine Linhoff was about the process. And I think when I was on the other side, I think what I frequently saw was many times where they said they did a listening tour, they said they had community meetings, and then we in the community did not see that reflected in what came out of that process. So that's why I'm very concerned that we're not just giving lip service to it, and I don't think we are. I'm just mentioning that from past experience, and that's what we really want to judiciously guard against, is people feeling like, well, they listened to us, but they didn't take it into account. So that was one point I wanted to make. And the second was, is there any, do you see any justification for Jim's point about maybe the consultant we have that does the listening tour and is really an expert at garnering public information and bringing it back to us, is there any justification for having different consultants for different parts of this process?
Thank you, Councilmember Brenner. I think there's different ways to hire the consultant. We could definitely have multiple consultants, each having a different specialty. Personally, for me, I want to deal with one prime contractor, one prime consultant that may hire multiple sub-consultants. I don't want to manage 4 consultants. Yes. All those sub-consultants need to, if I were to manage 4 or 5 different consultants, I got to make sure they all talk to each other, right? And that's going to be a logistical challenge for us. I want to hire one prime consultant That prime's responsibility is to coordinate with all the sub-consultants. So they may hire a PR firm to do the public outreach. They may hire somebody to do the planning work, somebody else to do the EIR, others to do the fiscal analysis. And it's the prime's responsibility to coordinate and set timelines. And that's their job. That's why I want to use just one consultant.
Makes sense.
Okay, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
So I'm on board with everything that the mayor has laid out for the process going forward. Mr. Harp, do we need any kind of straw vote to make that happen?
There's a couple points I'd like to just get a little bit of clarity on, if you have a moment. One of the suggestions was that the mayor be an ex officio without the power to vote, but a member of the committee. And I wasn't sure if there was council support of that, so maybe we could see if straw vote that one. Okay. And because this is under the Brown Act, we should probably record who voted. So if,
raise your arms again.
you
Now
wouldn't
it's
mind
Mayor
raising your
Pro Tem. That's everyone, unanimous.
The other is Council Policy A2 sets forth a process for how members are selected, but it's also very, very strict at how it's done. It basically allows, unless you guys can set up any process you want for the selection of members, but if you don't set up a process in the resolution, then you go with what Council Policy A2 says. And what Council Policy A2 says is that the mayor can form an ad hoc committee of up to actually composed of 3 council members to review the applications and then come back to the city council 2 weeks before there's actually an appointment. So you're looking at another meeting where those are reviewed, and then coming back at the next meeting after that for appointment. So it adds some additional time periods to it. But you're free to set up any type of process that you want as for the actual review of the applications and selections. From what I heard, the mayor would make the appointments and subject to confirmation of the city council. That would actually be done at a public meeting. The question is, who's going to be reviewing those applications and the kind of the time period for that? And I don't know if you want to vary from Council Policy A2, but that's the question.
I don't have a problem with having what we normally do, the mayor and 2 appointees, that's fine. And also, if we could clarify the period of time for the applicants. Are we under any kind of requirement, or can we define, what would you suggest, Madam Clerk?
Well, once the committee is formed, which is the second meeting in January, then I can immediately do the notice of vacancies. Just note that with the committee reviewing the applications, I'm not sure we would make that February 12th deadline. It would be nominations at the earliest, the February 12th, and then appointments the
Could we have the window period for applications 1 week?
Wouldn't they need to wait?
So you establish any time period you would like. So if you would have like to have a 1 week period, that's fine. We'll build that into the resolution. Did you say the normal process is 2 weeks? Is that what you said?
I believe that's what you read out of A2 was 2 weeks. But if it's built into the resolution, then
I think a lot of times we talk about 2 weeks because we're constituting more than one committee or a larger group. I mean, this is really simply
correct.
just 5.
We do generally do 2 weeks, even for boards, commissions, and committees for the annual large appointment period.
I think this doesn't require 2 weeks. Yeah.
1 week will probably be.
Any other comments here? Good to go? All right. Do you have your marching orders? Well, I just want to conclude this excellent discussion. It's the first of the next 3 years, 36 months at least, plus or minus, that we will be discussing the general plan. We will be creating a new constitution of our future, and it will be exciting. I'm personally excited. I think I share that excitement with my colleagues. I think, even though the message has been loud and clear from the community, I think we all want to be engaged in this process. We all have a vested interest in the future of our community, and we want it to be the best it can be. There are so much change in our lives, technology, transportation, housing issues, how people work, play, and live. It's phenomenal. And somebody, maybe it was Mr. Mosher, someone wrote about just Ms. Brenner, I think, mentioned this too, just there are different tools of how cities are looking at planning. I hope we do look at some of these tools to really imagine. If anyone can predict the future, I guess we could all be so lucky. But I am really excited to contemplate what our future will look like as a city. So thank you again, staff, the beginning of a long journey together with the community. So thank you very much. Okay, as we proceed now, we will go to public comments on agenda and non-agenda items. If you could please come forward.
Nancy Gardner, I'm sorry I can't be here this evening, and you're going to be looking at a contract for NBTV. I would urge you, if you could possibly, wait, only because there was a vision created for NBTV at one time, but it's not your vision. It hasn't really been looked at in a long time, and a television station is a marvelous asset. We've never fully utilized it, and it might be worthwhile to have that conversation about your vision, our vision of it, before letting a contract. And as you do look at the contract, you have to do it tonight, I would just say you might want to look at, as well as the individual providers, the scope of what Newport Beach and Company as a marketing arm of the city contributes, and whether there's an advantage there that may not be with the other. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comments on agenda or non-agenda items? Please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Jim Warmington, and I'm here to speak about the Newport Aquatic Center. Over 30 years ago, several of us met with Dave Grant, rowing coach at Orange Coast College, and later on the president of Orange Coast, to discuss building a nonprofit facility for young and old to engage in watercraft activities. The Steeles, Joe Thomas, and myself agreed to fund the project at North Star Beach if the city approved our plans for a community club. Fortunately, our city agreed that such a nonprofit facility was worthwhile. We were offered with specific conditions, a long-term lease at almost no cost. I became a founding member along with Dave and several others. Upon the completion of the center became a mecca for young and old athletes who were training there. Our programs have grown exponentially. The biggest program has been the junior rowing team, comprised of high school boys and girls. We have had over 200 of these young athletes each year participating in races nationally and internationally. So why am I here? Contrary to our lease, we have not been a nonprofit organization. For-profit businesses with the board's knowledge have been allowed. We have become a club which pays for personal expenses as well as allowed business expenses. Years ago, we had an 8-member elected board by members. Now the board is not member elected. We've had 8 board members recently, 2 quit, 2 whistleblowers were removed from the board, and so now we have 4 members left running the facility and 1 executive director. However, to me, the worst transgression that the NAC executive director and the board have received is that they have received significant donations from parents and juniors with the promise stated in board meetings that this money would benefit junior rowing. They now admit that this had not happened. To me, this is the very definition of fraud. It seems that they have been quite literally stealing from the kids to subsidize other activities. I'm not talking about little dollars, I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. In 2018, after years of mismanagement, the board acknowledged that our club was in serious financial shape. I met with the board. I offered them $250,000 from my wife and myself to build up the capital base of the club. My one stipulation was that a new board be in place. My offer was rejected. To me, that's pretty telling. We need the city's help to pressure our board to step down and investigate the abuses of illegality that has occurred on this city-owned property.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other public comments on non-agenda or agenda items? Please come forward.
Good evening. My name is David Grant, and I am but one of the NAC founders who steered the Newport Aquatic Center's original approval through some 13 public agencies, including ours, and then secured through people like Jim and the Steeles and Joe Thomas the funds to actually build the Newport Aquatic Center. Let me say that we have tried to keep this current mess in the operation of the NAC out of your proceedings. But we find finally that we have no recourse but to seek your help in restoring some responsible leadership and the fiscal integrity of the Newport Aquatic Center. You will have heard over the next couple of your meetings a wide-ranging host of serious complaints regarding the current board of directors, which, by the way, as you may know, voted themselves into office. Some might say that a simple way out of this is to let the pending civil court cases run their course. But I can guarantee you that this group of 4 current directors is doing everything it can to delay those cases for years. We need to end this ridiculous charade of a fraudulent board, and we need your help in doing so. With your own investigation, I think you will find that you are as angry, as disappointed, and ready to act as we are. It is not for me, certainly, to tell you what to do or how to do it, but you are the leaseor of city property charged with providing honest value to the city's citizens. To that end, you might consider putting the current board, which has clearly violated the public trust, out of business. You could cancel the lease if that's necessary, and then allow a new Newport Aquatic Center board to be established by elected members of that body. That's not currently the case. If the City Council allows that to occur, then I can tell you everything is going to fall into place. The Newport Aquatic Center can again become a well-governed operation, can be fiscally transparent, and it can be dedicated again to the development of young athletes, offering a well-run center for all members of this community, whether they're rowing or paddling, novices or Olympians. But we need your help in doing that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comments on agenda or non-agenda item?
Good evening. My name is Bruce Ibbotson. I'm one of the whistleblowers involved with the NAC. A founding member back from the early 80s, and I've been on and off the board several times, helping with projects. Most recently, about a three-plus year stint on the board, until the board illegally removed myself and Donna Warwick, the other whistleblower, as we delved into the expenses and the financial operations. Then just recently, the same 4 people who remain on the board expelled us from the club, trying to silence us. I think it's now time for the city to look at their asset and help restore proper governance and protect the kids that are involved in all the programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. That concludes our study session. Mr. Harp, if you want to comment on the closed session following.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Dixon. The City Council will adjourn to closed session to discuss item 4A, including meeting with labor negotiators, the City Manager, Grace Leong, Assistant City Manager, Carol Jacobs, Human Resources Director, Barbara Salvini, and Peter Brown to discuss labor negotiations with those unions listed under agenda item number 4A. Thank you.
Okay, we are adjourned until 7 p.m.
Did not attend that closed session, and so I just wanted to note it for the record.
Okay, we will now have the invocation presented by the Reverend Canon Cindy Evans Voorhees of St. James Episcopal Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Brenner. Please rise.
Let us pray. Creator God, we pray for fresh beginnings in this new year for our beloved city, Newport Beach, that 2019 will be fruitful, relevant, and productive. Bless our new Mayor, Diane, our Mayor Pro Tem, Will, our council persons, Brad, Duffy, Kevin, Jeff, and Joy, and all those in authority who serve this city. We pray for discernment for the many decisions that will be made this year that will affect the citizens of our community. Help us to act with character and conviction, to listen with understanding and goodwill, and to speak with charity and grace. Give us a spirit of service with collaboration. Help us to see the humanity and dignity of those who we disagree with. Guide us to treat all persons, no matter how weak or poor, with reverence. Renew us with the strength of your presence and the joy of helping to build a community worthy of the human person. We ask this confident in your goodness and love. Amen.
The flag of the United States of America and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk.
The city provides a yellow sign-in card to assist in the preparation of the minutes. The completion of the card is not required in order to address the city council. If the optional sign-in card has been completed, it should be placed in the box provided at the podium. The City Council of Newport Beach welcomes and encourages community participation. Public comments are generally limited to 3 minutes per person to allow everyone to speak. Written comments are encouraged as well. The City Council has a discretion to extend or shorten the time limit on agenda or non-agenda items. As a courtesy, please turn cell phones off or set them in the silent mode.
We will now have City Council announcements and new items council members would like to be introduced for future agendas. So in other words, we're merging oral reports with City Council on committee activities with announcements. City Council members, Mr. Avery, any announcements?
Thank you, Mayor. Last month, as a board member, I attended my first meeting of the Orange County Sanitation District Board. And the Sanitation District, as you can imagine, handles the wastewater treatment and water recycling for 2.6 million residents in Orange County. And it's an extraordinary public agency, and I know this because I've been working with them on a project for about 12 years, and it's really something, and I'm a fan of the agency, and I'm really delighted to be sitting on the board. Thank you for the appointment, Mayor.
Thank you.
This public agency has a 2-year budget of approximately $800 million, and the agency projects a $2.7 billion in capital expenses over the next 10 years for the infrastructure, for all of the sewer and the recycling and all the things they're doing, rebuilding plants, facilities all the time. It's the best agency of its kind, I think, in the world. So that's all I've got, really, except from time to time I may report some interesting findings and things that are going on with the sanitation district, especially with water recycling that's going on and right now, and we'll be moving forward with some real help with our water supply. So I'll occasionally bring that stuff up. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good report. Mr. Duffield.
Thank you, Mayor. I have something coming up on the screen, hopefully. So I sit on the Newport Beach Executive Watershed Committee, and we met last December, and I thought I would brief you on a pretty important issue. This happens to be where all the upstream sediment, trash, and vegetation ends up in our bay. So I wanted to just give you a little, you've probably seen it, and I wanted to give you a reason why it's there and what we're doing about it. So I've been on this committee for 4 years, and in early December, as I said, we experienced a very heavy rain event that normally we don't see until February. And as a result, you can see the vegetation that accumulates in the harbor all over the place, in beaches and on the bay. And here's one, obviously, that was a while ago, but this is the result of vegetation coming from the watershed. So, okay, so now let me go on and just say that the result was a tremendous amount of vegetation that's been deposited on our waterways and beaches. And this material comes from San Diego Creek, as I said, and a small amount from the Delhi Channel, and a little bit from Big Canyon runoff. During the dry season, the county is responsible for clearing all the upstream storm channels of vegetation. However, there are challenges. As the trees and bushes grow, they soon become shelter habitat and food source for birds and other small animals. Now, only 50% of the vegetation can be removed so the environment for the birds and wildlife can flourish. The trouble is vegetation slows down the heavy rainflow of water to the point where the sediment, sand, begins to build up. And as the channel fills, the water is pushed higher and up against the walls to the point where flooding is possible. And the county works really hard. I usually didn't think they worked that hard, but they do, to resolve these things with these different challenges. And timing is also a huge consideration. No removal can be done, for example, during the mating seasons of various animals and birds and insects. And the county has to work around all these dates, which really compounds the problem for clearing. And this year we had an early storm, as I said, and the channels were not cleared in time, thus massive flows of trees, branches, weeds, and stick ended up on our beaches and waterways. So as we get to the upstream of the 405, where we have camp upstream of 405. So here's an interesting shot. You can see the storm drain channels above the 405 are all cleared of vegetation. However, from the 405 to where it enters into our bay at Jamboree, you can see there is a virtual forest. And you'd ask, well, why is that? And I ask that all the time. And I get various answers. But it's, as I said, with the different agencies involved, it's extremely hard to maintain and keep this channel open. And here's where it finally ends up into our upper bay. And this is quite an issue, and I wanted to bring everyone's attention to that, while this storm caught us off guard, being so early, I'm confident the county is doing all they can to get the permits, funding, and equipment out there on site to do their job. But just sometimes the bureaucracy can be so overwhelming and things slow down. I know our staff and council will continue to work with these agencies and county upstream of our harbor to make sure we minimize the impact of the upcoming storms. That's it. Thank you.
Well, thank you. That was an excellent report. Mr. Muldoon. Ms. Brenner.
Yes, this has been an interesting experience already. I have been at Grace's request meeting with the various department heads in the city and finding out about the real inner workings of our very dedicated staff. And it's fascinating. As informed as I thought I was, there's so much more to know, and it's exciting learning about that and inspirational to know we have such hardworking staff. I've also met with almost all of the council members individually, and that's great. I think we're going to have a great working relationship, so I'm enjoying that. I have some training that I'm doing for the Association of California Cities that I'll be going to a full-day training session on January the 10th for newly elected officials and 3 days at UCI later in the month. So there's a lot to know. There's a lot to get excited about, and I'm just really thrilled to be doing this. I also was lucky enough to attend the oral history tea at Mariners Elementary School as my granddaughter's guest. And she was very pleased to announce that I had been elected to city council. So it was fun for her to get to talk about that. Basically, I also went to Jeff's Water Quality Affairs meeting. I'm going to as many of the meetings as I possibly can because as involved as I've been, I have not been exposed to everything. So that's something that is important for me to do. And I'm learning a lot as I go along, and I'm really excited about it.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Herdman.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Before Christmas, in fact, it was on December the 12th, I attended the American Public Works Association Southern California Chapter Awards Luncheon. And very good. Okay. The Park Avenue Bridge, or as I call it, the Little Island Bridge, was selected for a second award. This association recognizes annually the top projects in Southern California in various municipal categories, such as facilities, utilities, recreation, and transportation. The Park Avenue Bridge was recognized as a project of the year in the transportation division. Park Avenue Bridge, in the transportation category. It was chosen amongst other city projects because of the difficulty of construction, the complexities having to do with the construction of this bridge, the close quarters, because a temporary bridge had to be constructed, also for the beautiful design and for the extensive community outreach that was conducted. Pictured here is the gentleman who gave the award out, myself, Zach Gentry, who is an employee of the city and had a great deal to do with the project. I don't know who the other guy is. But it was a fun luncheon. It was great to see the variety of projects that were being given awards. And once again, our staff was recognized for the outstanding job they did. I couldn't get Mark Vukojevic to go up on stage. Instead, he made me go up. I had nothing to do with this project other than cheer it on, but Mark gave me the pleasure of going up. So thank you, Mark. Also, before Christmas, I attended the Salvation Army annual Christmas holiday luncheon. Pleased to see a number of people from our city who attend that lunch and support this organization. I'm currently involved in doing work along with our mayor in establishing a disaster preparedness council here in the district, in the city. We continue, when I say we, I mean our mayor, Councilman Muldoon, and myself, continue to hold messaging and strategy meetings with key stakeholders in our city regarding John Wayne Airport issues. We actually met last week with Supervisor Steele to discuss next-gen issues and airport expansion issues. And then my colleague here, Joy, mentioned that she attended the Tidelands Water Quality Meeting, which I am now chair of. I'm following Councilman Avery, who did an excellent job last year, and just an outstanding committee of very dedicated people. I see one of our members sitting right out there, Carl, who are absolutely dedicated to improving water quality within our bay and maintaining it. And I think that's about it. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
A few. So I attended the Oasis Holiday Luncheon, served and cleaned up with our city manager and then Laura Detweiler and her excellent staff. Along with the mayor and Councilmember Herdman, we attended police swearing in for some of our new employees at the police department. We had a TCA luncheon, the toll roads. The boat parade opening night was fantastic. I hope everyone was able to at least see portions of the boat parade. I'd like to say a brief thank you to our firefighters who are in the back of the audience right now. The opening night was a little more interesting than it should have been with a fire on Lido Island, but they were there quickly and got it out. I attended our new sheriff, Don Barnes' swearing in, and real quickly, just want to say thank you to our police and fire and our safety for being away from their families in the holiday season, serving the city, especially those who pulled that particular duty. Coming up, we've got a couple things on a slide. The first one is grand jury appointments and applications are back. So the Orange County Superior Court is accepting applications for the 2019-20 grand jury. The grand jury makes a difference by promoting sound government, issuing indictments for serious crimes, evaluating conditions in the county jails, and making sure local tax dollars are spent wisely. The deadline to apply is Friday, January 28th. For an application or more information, visit ocgrandjury.org or call 657-622-6747. It says January 18th on the slide. Is it 18th or 28th? Okay, it's 18th. All right, so January 18th. And then the next is everyone counts. So this is the 2019 point in time. The County of Orange is conducting the 2019 point in time count on Wednesday, January 23rd and Thursday, January 24th. Volunteers are needed to survey areas and count our homeless population. These biennial efforts provide the county and its efforts, including the city of Newport Beach, information to help us better understand and address homelessness. Every volunteer will receive advanced training. If you're interested in helping out, please visit everyonecounts.oc.org. You may see some of the folks. I will actually be doing it this year. It starts at about 5 a.m. And you get up and go out, and it's truly worthwhile because it really does help us determine what course we need to take as a county and as a city. Thank you very much.
Well, very good. I have a few announcements, so we'll bring up the first slide if we may. This morning, it's coming. This morning I had the distinct pleasure and honor to administer the oath of office to our very own Orange County Supervisor, District 2, Michelle Steele. I'd never done the oath of office before, so I practiced, and I did it okay, and I was very honored. Actually, it was a wonderful ceremony for Supervisor Bartlett and the new supervisor, Doug Chafee. So there were 3 supervisors being sworn in, and it was a very meaningful ceremony, and I'm honored to have participated in and continue to look forward to working with our supervisor. She does care a great deal about Newport Beach. To follow up what Mr. Herdman was mentioning about our meeting with her last week, specifically on John Wayne Airport issues. Mr. Muldoon, Mr. Herdman, and I met with Michelle in her office to talk about our priorities for the community in terms of jet noise and health and air pollution issues and certain issues related to the airport and their future plans. And she's on board with us the whole way. So we were very gratified to hear that. Also, the next announcement, next slide, Restaurant Week. Okay, I hope everybody's been on their diets in the holidays because we're now going to start eating again. So Restaurant Week begins January 14th through Sunday, January 27th. It's really fun. I hope you all are aware with what the special menus at our restaurants, our participating restaurants, set up and like a price fix. So it's a really good value. 65 Newport Beach restaurants will be participating and offering their price fix menus for lunch or dinner, and start planning your reservations now. And I think you could do them on open table, and it's really a lot of fun, and you always run into people you see and know. Everybody's out enjoying our wonderful restaurant. So I see Mr. Sherwin out here too. So I know you've been doing Newport Beach and Company's been doing a lot of promotion for Restaurant Week, and to our restaurant bid. So it's great that we're all going to be eating in our wonderful restaurants. A couple updates on some of our activities. Some of you may know that the California Coastal Commission met in this very chamber in Newport Beach, December 12th through 14th. We were honored to host them, and I know many residents were here and spoke, and it's a good opportunity to have FaceTime with the Coastal Commission. One thing I did that I had never done before, our trash waste hauler, CR&R, invited me to go out to Paris, Perris, California. I would have gone the other one too if they had a facility there. Their organic waste recycling center is like state of the art. Literally everything they bring in never goes away. I mean, everything trash they bring in of all forms of trash is recycled and reused. And all the trucks that we see in our community picking up trash in our neighborhoods are fueled on organic fuel. It's really fascinating. I was very impressed. So a little plug for CR&R. They're complying and prepared to comply with mandates that we all will have to comply with, I think, in the next 2 years, according to state mandates of how we dispose of our organic waste. And so CR&R has that capability, thankfully. I attended Oasis's monthly meeting. They wanted to hear from the mayor last Friday, and it's always a pleasure to go to Oasis. And I was delighted to tell them and thank them for the extensive, substantial, and significant levels of volunteer activity that keeps our Oasis Senior Center providing high service letters and programming that saves. It's over 14,000 hours a year of volunteer activity that saves us hiring full-time staff, the equivalent about 8 full-time staff, if I have my numbers correct. So that was always good. And then last night, our Women in Newport networking, this is our 4th year, we had over 100 women for a special event to honor our newest council member Brenner, at our Bungalow Restaurant. It was a wonderful event, and I was just so proud to have another companion on the council. I have plenty of companions here, but another woman companion. So we're getting that balance done pretty well. So it was just a pleasure to have that event last night. And I think that takes care of all of my announcements, except we do have a couple extra announcements. We have here tonight a representative of our new Assemblywoman Petrie Norris, Nathan Searcy. Nathan, are you here? You're here. Come on up if you wanted to make a comment, please. Yes, either one is fine.
Hello. My name is Nathan Searcy. I work for Cotty Petrie Norris as her field representative. Basically, if you guys have any questions about state services, any suggestions on bills, anything at all from the state government, you can come to me. I have cards here, so if you'd like my info, come on up and grab it. Thanks so much.
And thank you for being here, and give her our regards. Ms. Leung, you had two comments. You want to talk about the agenda as well as our new harbor master.
Yes, yeah, thank you very much. I'd like to introduce our new harbor master, Kurt Borsting. Very excited. Kurt, can you stand up so people can see you? He started December 10th. And kind of jumped right into it as the Christmas boat parade began a few days after that. So got very much integrated into our community right there. Prior to joining our team here at the City of Newport Beach, Kurt served as a superintendent for marine operations for the City of Long Beach from 2015 through the end of 2018. He was responsible for managing day-to-day operations of two large municipal-operated marinas, the city's downtown commercial harbor property, a dry storage facility, 5 of the most active boat launch facilities in Southern California, so a very large operation in Long Beach. With that, and along with his prior career managing facilities with a couple Cal State University campuses, really brings a lot of strong project management skills, a strong customer service orientation. So we're very excited and fortunate to have him here, and he's jumping right in, starting out with the boat parade and going right into outreach with a lot of the stakeholders in our community, going into the Title 17 comprehensive update, supporting our Harbor Commission on a lot of the initiatives. So very excited for, through the guidance of the council in creating the new department and setting a strong foundation, really think he can help move us forward through his leadership to continue the great work that's been done. And I also want to note, we've already shown great Newport Beach hospitality to him. He was at a dock and dropped his glasses off, and a community member happened to be there and went back during low tide and found his glasses and returned them to him. So that's Newport Beach for you, I think. So welcome, Kurt.
Welcome.
Oh, and my second piece, I wanted to make sure to let folks know here, if you are here for the public hearing items number 9 and number 10, which have to do with the harbor fees for the new harbor department and the sidewalk vendor permit application fees, those require specific public noticing. And due to a very unusual newspaper delivery issue that occurred over the holiday period, the initial notice did not get out. So in order to have the appropriate noticing time, we're continuing those 2 items to the next council meeting. So those will be heard at the next council meeting with the appropriate noticing. So thank you.
Thank you, and welcome to our new harbor master. So nice to see you. All right, now we have public comments on the items, council announcements, or oral reports. So just what you heard, if there are any public comments on these items, please come forward. Oh, we have one. All right, Mr. Cassidy.
Okay, well, I want to thank Mayor. I want to congrats to you and everybody on the council for the council that's in place here. Awesome that we have more women in government. For those of us that have women in our lives, even if they're our daughters or our mothers, this is awesome. And anyway, I wanted to speak to a couple things real quick. I wanted to thank Councilmember Avery for his comments on the infrastructure and the importance of that, especially beneath the ground, and thank him for his leadership on the Water Quality Committee. And I also wanted to speak real quickly to Mr. Duffy's, Councilmember Duffy's comments about the San Diego Creek. I appreciate your leadership and your heartfelt concern for the harbor all the way back the bay. I think there's some things that we can do there, especially with your leadership. If we look back to the permits and the conservation easements that were done, and I really applaud your leadership on behalf of everybody in the city. I do have an ask, though. With respect to the general plan, I know you guys have spent a lot of time on it. I respectfully ask that you would consider a couple things. One, as you move through this, and I really applaud that you're moving into this first thing right after the New Year, first meeting.
Excuse me, would you mind doing this last
Yes, ma'am.
item on the on non-agenda item? Because
Yes,
we discussed this in the study session.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I didn't know the timing. Thank you.
All
for
right,
your
thank
time.
you.
All right.
You could come back at non-agenda items. Thank you. Any other comments related to our announcements? Okay. Madam Clerk.
This is the time in which council members may pull items from the consent calendar for discussion. Those are items 1 through 8. Public comments are also invited on consent calendar items. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, please state your name for the record. If any item is removed from the consent calendar by a council member, members of the public are invited to speak on each of the items recommending an act. For each of the items for up to 3 minutes per item. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion in the form listed below. Council members have received detailed staff reports on each of the items recommending an action. There will be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time the City Council votes on the motion unless members of the City Council request specific items to be discussed and are removed from the consent calendar for separate action.
Okay, council members. Mr. Avery, any items to pull?
I have none.
Mr. Duffield? Mr. Muldoon? Ms. Brenner?
No.
Mr. Herdman?
None.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I have none.
And I'd like to recuse myself on item number 6, base 2, business conflict interest having to do with undergrounding of wireless and telecommunication devices.
Mayor Pro Tem, do you have a motion?
Just a moment. I think Ms. Brenner had one other additional.
Sorry.
I had asked to abstain on items 4 and 7, which are contract negotiations, because I was not part of the process. So I will abstain, but I'm very supportive of these actions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I move approval of the balance of the consent calendar with item number 4 showing an abstention from Councilmember Brenner, item number 6 showing a recusal from Councilmember Muldoon, and item number 7 showing an abstention from Councilmember Brenner.
Okay. Public comments on the consent calendar.
We need a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. A second? Second. Thank you. All right, let's go out to have public comments. Any public comments? Seeing none, we'll come back. Let's vote.
The motion passes unanimously 7-0.
Very good. Madam Clerk.
Moving very fast. Public comments are invited on non-agenda items generally considered to be within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, please state your name for the record.
Now's your time, Mr. Cassidy, if you want.
Check.
Yes, your name, please.
My name is Ryan Reza Farside. I'm a shareholder in the city of Newport Beach by way of my condominium in Belcourt Park and also Belcourt Master. So I just wanted to let the ladies and gentlemen to know that there are 62 million residents in the United States of America that live in 24.8 million American homes that are governed by HOAs. Currently, my HOA association, board of directors, their management company, and their attorney are responsible for white-collar crime. And when I bring it to the chief's attention, he tells me I need to go hire an attorney. So I'm here to poke the attorney who's not here. The attorney is the biggest racket in the world. Why is that? We have an election process that doesn't work, and the governor of Oregon got back to me. I spoke to the inspector of elections with the governor's office, Governor Brown of Oregon. God bless her. She gave me the truth. So she said, Ryan, this is a problem that falls underneath the courts. The courts are basically the attorneys, ladies and gentlemen. Let's not forget that. The judicial system, the executive branch, all this stuff is all run by the attorneys at one point or another. Today, which state is really underfunded? 47% funded pension. Obama state, Oprah Winfrey, huh? Is that what happened? California is 69%, Councilman O'Neill. 69% of the promises you make to people. Why do we make these promises? I just saw city manager, Grace. I saw you on the Irvine budget. That's pretty good. The city of LA doesn't have a budget since 2016. It's not available online for the public. The city manager, city clerk's office, when asked, what debts did you put on the people's back, they have no answer for me. They say, I don't have that information. It's a decentralized system. I said, what kind of centralized is it? You have 15 districts. Who has the information, city attorney? In this city, I got $115 million balance sheet. That's how much we owe in debts. I think that's for this beautiful building. I like this building. It's nice. But we did sell nice property to Mr. Olson, and we incurred debt. So what happened here? What I do understand is very simple. The homeowners associations have different rules. The attorneys are responsible for these rules. They cause the crime. They cause the conflict, and they make money off it. I wanted to let the City of Mission Viejo's attorney, Dr. Curley, the Belcourt Park, David Wankel, and Mike Fuhrer of the City of Los Angeles to know that you guys are running a racket. It's impossible to work with the system when the racket's run by the same fraternity and sorority. They're all on the same team. They're here to make money. They make money off you guys every day. They're very good professionals. So thank you again. The president gets paid $400,000. Our police chief gets $2.5 million. He doesn't tell me. He tells me I have to go hire an attorney to go deal with my homeowners breaking into my yard and spraying USA side goals like we're playing soccer in my side yard in a condominium.
Okay.
Mayor Dixon.
Yes, thank
you very much. God
Thank
bless
you.
America.
Okay. Next speaker, please, on non-agenda items. Mr. Cassidy, do you want to speak?
I know you spent a lot of time, thank you again, Carl Cassidy, resident, on the general plan, and once again, congratulations for all that you're doing and appreciation. I had a couple ideas, and I don't know if this is the right time or right forum, but one, with the general plan, would it, for your consideration, perhaps having, since we're looking a year out and there's things that's going to be going on, like Councilmember Will O'Neill did back last March, we've got affordable housing regs coming. I would invite you to consider having a report to the public every 90 days, with regard to, just so the public is aware, and once you seat a citizen committee, it just as a best business practices kind of thing that Dave Kiff might do. So that every 90 days it comes back to the council. The second thing is a little more controversial. I'd invite you to consider, and hopefully I'm at the right forum, at least in the right time. Now, Mayor Dixon, is whether or not someone that has a developer interest or has a developer experience background, whether that's the right place for them to be on this committee that you're going to select. There's an inherent conflict of interest, and we have several talented, committed developers in this city. But I'm wondering if those individuals, if that's the right place for them to be in this committee that you decide to proceed with the general plan. And they're just ideas. Anyway, thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, everybody. Mayor, council members. My name is Pat Rolfus. I'm sure you all remember me. This is about my third or fourth time of coming up and speaking in this forum regarding the illegal activities at the Newport Aquatic Center, the NAC. I was the director of junior rowing at the NAC for 2 years. I was wrongfully terminated in August for blowing the whistle on all the criminal activities and inappropriate management behavior at the NAC. I'm submitting an email chain from last March recapping 4 separate incidents and the attempt of a board member to cover up these facts. My sworn declaration from June, where I highlight specific examples of illegal activities, including stealing restricted funds, donated funds from the kids, and my current wrongful termination lawsuit that I just filed. One amazing thing is that I was present in a closed-door executive session board meeting when the NAC executive director admitted that he had used NAC assets for himself, his brother-in-law, and other favored NAC employees to run for-profit businesses out of the NAC for personal profit. He engaged in fraudulent fundraising. He used $10,000 of NAC money to pay his personal IRS tax bill, and more. All four current board members were present and supported the director's actions, all of which violate the city's agreed-upon CUPs, among many other things. I'm submitting a document of known and admitted laws broken by the NAC executive director and board members. I also want to bring up the fact that the NAC executive director installed and used an illegal hidden spy microphone to listen in on meetings in the NAC classroom. I personally had private meetings with parents and their children regarding suicidal tendencies, rape, cutting, and other extremely sensitive issues. The fact that these people's rights to privacy were violated absolutely disgusts me. I'm submitting a letter that I wrote to the Newport Beach Police Department asking them to investigate. All of this bad behavior has resulted in the NAC junior rowing program and its kids being severely impacted. The number of kids participating is dropping fast. Fundraising for the kids has dried up. College opportunities and scholarships have significantly decreased. All of these actions have had a very real and incredibly negative impact on the Newport Beach high school student athletes who train at the NAC, most with aspirations of rowing in college. I'm asking you to please take action to restore proper governance and purpose which the NAC was founded, and why the city allowed the use of our public land in the first place. Please do the right thing and investigate the NAC. And when you uncover for yourselves these illegal actions, follow the remedies spelled out in your lease agreement you have in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Next comment, please.
Hi, my name's Chrissy Emmel. I'm a resident of Newport Beach and a volunteer at the NAC, where my children have been rowers for years. In March of 2018, I was among a group of about 100 junior rowing parents, directors, and staff that engaged in a long email exchange with the president of the board of the NAC, Bill Grant, in which people wanted answers about all of the wrongdoings at the NAC and the board's ongoing efforts to cover it up. Dr. Grant stated in the email chain that it was too much work for him to answer all the questions via email, so I offered to meet with Dr. Grant in person and transcribe his answers for him and then distribute them to the group of concerned parents and everyone else on the email chain. Dr. Grant agreed to this. During our meeting, I took extremely accurate notes, frequently stopping Dr. Grant to clarify my notes with him. Dr. Grant admitted to and verified that many of the allegations of wrongdoing at the NAC were true. A day or two after the meeting, Dr. Grant sent me an email stating that under advice of counsel, he did not want his answers distributed. And after I typed out the meeting notes and sent them with a picture of my handwritten notes for Dr. Grant to read, he then claimed that he didn't remember stating what I had written down in my notes. When pressed, Dr. Grant refused to allow my notes of our meeting to be distributed to the parents. I've included a copy of the email chain and my meeting notes for your review. Because of the fraud, mismanagement, and cover-ups at the NAC, a valuable program is being destroyed. Upper management at the NAC has a history of retaliation. I'm more than concerned for my 14-year-old daughter who loves being on the rowing team. My daughter has a lot to lose by my being up here talking to you about this, but she knows the difference between right and wrong, and the current leaders at the NAC are in the wrong. So it's important enough to our family that we do the right thing and bring this to your attention. You are the only ones who can bring immediate help to the children and citizens of Newport Beach who continue to be manipulated, lied to, and stolen from by the management at the NAC. I also brought my declaration that I gave last May that includes these matters, which I signed and filed in court under penalty of perjury. Please help. The kids and other members of the NAC feel like the center has been hijacked and we're powerless to stop them. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is Donna Warwick, and I'm a director of the NAC. I am a plaintiff along with my fellow director, Bruce Ibbotson, back here, and we are seeking the removal of the current board and the return of hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, taken from the NAC and the citizens of Newport Beach by the defendants in this case. When Bruce and I began scrutinizing the expenses of the NAC, we quickly realized the following was occurring. The continual and excessive personal spending of employees using NAC funds to purchase items such as grow lamps, residential ceiling fans, screen doors, cat door, excessive local food, groceries, gas, clothing, sunglasses, and many other home improvements and personal items, just to name some examples. We have a list of thousands of line items of personal expenses paid for the NAC, and this is before discovery and deposition has occurred in our case. We have found fraudulent bookkeeping and donation fraud, misappropriation of junior rowing dues and donations, and the alteration of corporate records. There are multiple third-party businesses using NAC land, which I know you have already heard about. The NAC building and NAC employees and resources are also being utilized by these third-party businesses. We have found tens of thousands of dollars paid for by the NAC to build paddles, repair boats, store and customize boats with cash going to individuals and not back to the NAC. These businesses are unlicensed in California and not registered with the city. We have found programs using the city land and NAC resources and assets that are secretly run off the books with cash and no record of income coming back into the NAC. And last, sadly for the employees, there are countless employee issues due to the lack of adherence to labor laws. The board has covered up employee abuse, sexual harassment, retaliation, and many other issues. Bruce and I have tried our best to reason with the board and other members, thinking they would be interested in correcting the wrongs, only to realize that they not only knew about the corruption, they did everything they could to stall, cover up, and deny the wrongdoing. We have been met with hostility and harassment for exposing this fraud, ultimately culminating with 4 board members illegally, per their own bylaws, voting Bruce and I out and blocking our access to meetings and financial information. I've compiled 219 detailed slides that describe this wrongdoing, and I must note this is only what I managed to uncover while the NAC illegally prevented my access to records and directed others outside the NAC to stop sharing information with me. I'm convinced that the extent of the damage to the NAC is in the more of 10 years of corruption has been going on as well over $1 million. I have proof that these abuses continue today. The city cannot allow this fraud to continue on their land, and I urge this council to take action now to restore good governance to the NAC for the sake of the kids and the citizens of Newport Beach who you serve. Here is a copy of my information about some of the corruption of the NAC. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is Elise Kung. I am a senior at Corona Del Mar High School and a former participant in the NAC junior rowing program. I was very sad and disappointed to make the difficult decision to quit the junior rowing program merely weeks into my senior season this past fall. However, I can no longer participate in a program that was and still is poorly run, in a program where money intended to support us in our quest for rowing excellence and valuable experiences was squandered and stolen. Many of my fellow rowers are making the same difficult decision. And as I have witnessed during my 4 years as a women's coxswain, this wonderful program is in rapid decline. The financial mismanagement occurring at the NAC has not only put the rowing program into gradual deterioration, but it has put the tight-knit NAC family into shambles. I cannot understand how the city can allow for all of this corruption to go on when all of the kids in the program, or rather everyone in Newport who is familiar with the Newport Aquatic Center, are aware of it. And this has been going on for far longer than my time spent in the rowing program. This has been going on for years, at least a decade. With all due respect, please do your duty as our elected officials and protect the children of Newport Beach from these abuses. Please restore NAC to what it should be, a place where future participants can get all of the benefits and life lessons it should offer. Thank you.
Thank you. Next public comment, please. Next speaker.
Good evening, Mayor Dixon and members of the council. My name is Lynn Riddle. I am a retired federal judge. I served here in Orange County for 14 years. I am here, however, on a different mission. I am here this evening to announce and to invite all of the residents to join us in our 3rd annual Orange County Women's March. And that will occur on Saturday, January the 19th, in downtown Santa Ana, our county seat. Now, you might ask, why march? Or what's this all about? And I'd have to say, as a participant in the 2 prior marches, that it really is about whatever you're marching about. It's a personal expression. But here are some of the reasons and some of the purposes that the march planners, and I'm a part of that board, foresee as a reason to join into this march. And so here's what that group has said. It has said that the Orange County Women's March is a completely local and nonpartisan effort to promote inclusivity and equity in our collective efforts to first advance the status of women and women's issues within our community. And second, of course, being that we are the caretakers of hearth, home, and the community, we women have chosen to sponsor the Women's March not as a demonstration, but to invite everyone among us to celebrate and to dedicate ourselves to jointly promote our vision of dignity, humanity, and inclusivity for all who live within our county. And finally, while never seeking to simply be reactive, it's important to say that we marchers firmly believe that women, and men too of good faith, must stand in solidarity with all in our communities who feel marginalized, as well as to stand together against hatred and oppression in any of the forms that they should manifest themselves within our communities. We look forward to marching with you in downtown Santa Ana on Saturday, January the 19th. And for anyone who's here who's interested, I brought some very small flyers, but they do give the information about the march. And if you're interested as well, you can go online to just simply Google OC Women's March, and we have a website there that will give you the march route, the parking places, and give you all of the other information. This is a very local effort to raise our goodness together in the streets of Orange County and in our civic center. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and Newport City Council members. My name is Val Vitols. I represent the All Natural Environment. And you have a lot of work to do, it sounds like, this year with all the people coming up and the issues. So on a lighter issue here, but important one, I represent, like I say, the All Natural Environment. And I'm the Dean of the Nations United University. And what I propose, very simply, is fruit tree plantings all throughout the city of Newport Beach in honor of the environment and for the community to enjoy. And this is, hopefully, the kids will be involved, the high school students and children would be involved with this volunteer effort. And we're looking for sponsors, basically. And this is just an idea. It's a basically a grassroots ground movement here initially. I'm going around to all the city councils in the Orange County and trying to get support for this. But it would be an honor, again, for the environment, which we're neglecting here. We have to understand that the environment is suffering, and these issues are important, what you're dealing with here, but there's a lot more going on with our air, our water, and our food quality. So we're not going to be around too long if we don't look at these issues. So I'm not here to negate anything, but it's just a matter of let's do something like plant fruit trees for supporting the natural environment. It just makes sense, and I hope you will consider this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Seeing none? Okay. We will now, since the public hearing have been deferred to a future meeting, we'll go right to current business. Our sculpture exhibit in the Civic Center Park. So, Mr. Hetherington, thank you.
Actually, just briefly, it might be a good idea just to officially go ahead and continue items number 10 and then see if anyone from the public has, yeah, that's why I said 9 and 10, to continue to the next meeting.
Continue what?
Items 9 and 10.
To formally vote on it?
Yes.
All right.
And if anyone has any public
May we have a
comment.
motion to?
I move continuance of items 9 and 10.
Do we have
I'll
a
second.
All right. Any comments? Let's vote.
Just real quick, I believe Councilmember Duffield will recuse himself from item number 9 based on his business interests.
Correct. Thank you.
All right, let's vote.
Noting Councilmember Duffield's recusal on item 9, the motion carries 7-0.
All right, we'll go to current business, the sculpture exhibition in Civic Center Park. Mr. Hetherington, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. I'm here tonight on behalf of the City Arts Commission, who have a proposal for Phase 4 of the sculpture exhibition in Civic Center Park. Sort of a brief presentation. Background, the sculpture exhibition has been a rotating art exhibition in Civic Center Park since 2014. Essentially, the pieces are borrowed for 2 years. The artists who loan the art are paid an honorarium that doesn't exceed $5,000 for a total of $50,000 per phase. And the total expense per phase is approximately $135,000, which includes the honoraria, installation, deinstallation, project management, council direction. As part of the approval of Phase 3 and 4 in April of 2017, City Council directed that the funds for the artist honoraria should come from private funds, and that project management fees should be reduced by 50%, and city staff should handle the installation of Phase 4. Well, the City Arts Commission, they respectfully request that Council put aside these conditions and consider an alternative proposal that the Arts Commission approved at their December meeting. And that proposal is as follows. The total cost of the project is about $135,000. And of that, project management and installation totals about $85,000, with the honorary at $50,000. The culture arts budget presently has about $100,000 that's allocated towards Phase 4, and therefore they're about $35,000 short. I call this kind of the good news slide. The Newport Beach Arts Foundation has pledged $15,000 towards Phase 4 honoraria. And the Arts Commission, in their present budget, they have sufficient funds in the professional services account to transfer over to the sculpture exhibition account. And so therefore they require no additional funding from the city, and they'll still retain ample funds in that professional services account in order to do all the things that they need to do during the fiscal year, which is install art in the central library, maintain our art, hire events coordinators, and similar functions. Project management. We've used ArtsOC since the program's beginning. They've really done a good job, in the Arts Commission's opinion. Very responsive to the Arts Commission. They took some direction from Council for 3 and 4 to increase community engagement. Now these pieces are selected entirely by the community. There's a lot of public input, a lot of engagement, and they're just very content with the job that they've done. They were contracted by the city through RFPs. They were basically the only game in town. They came in at budget. There really wasn't any competing interests. They're the most qualified, and to me and to the Arts Commission, that suggests that the budget for the project is already at or below what it should be at. Installation is done by a subcontractor of ArtsOC called Display Incorporated. And ArtsOC, they base their estimate for installation and deinstallation of Phase 4 on the previous costs for the installation and deinstallation. So I think this is a kind of an important point because in order to get these pieces, the Arts Commission institutes a call for entry. So artists will submit their various pieces. It could be a small bronze piece that is very cheap to install, or it could be, a piece like a matchstick, which requires power and a crane in order to set up. So I think, they've really accounted for the fact that pieces come in different shapes and sizes, and the requirements for installing them are, it can be at the low end or the high end. The Arts Commission also feels that by hiring a business that specializes in art installation, that you can reduce the overhead costs, which would be your insurance, your legal fees, your rental fees, repairs and supplies. You minimize your risk and liability. And then I think kind of importantly, I don't have any doubt in my mind that our public works and mod staff could do a great job at this. But by putting them on this project, you're sort of taking them away from their core services, which would be all their engineering projects and, all the work that goes into keeping the city looking as fabulous as it does. And at this time, I'd be glad to take any questions. I'm also pleased to announce that the Arts Commission is basically here en masse in the front row there, so I'm sure they would like to make some comments as well.
Anyone have a question at this point? Why don't we invite the Arts Commission and Arts Foundation if they'd like to make some comments, please.
I'm Arlene Greer, and I'm chair of the City Arts Commission. With the City of Newport Beach, the Arts Commission, the Arts Foundation, and various private participants have developed over the last 5 years is a public-private partnership that clearly demonstrates the commitment our community has to public art. We have created a museum without walls that serves families, seniors, young adults, and visitors by providing, where we can, pause, recreate, reflect, and interact. We have created a destination which provides educational opportunities for students and revenue opportunities for local merchants. As staff has reported, the Commission and the Foundation have worked hard to secure private funding to augment the monies so generously provided by the city. These funds that we hope you approve tonight will ensure that Phase 4 of the Sculpture Garden will be completed. The completion will also enhance the incentive and motivation of the Commission and the Foundation to secure additional private funds, thus further relieving the financial obligation of the city. As chairman of the Arts Commission, and on behalf of the Arts Commission, I want to acknowledge and thank the members of the Arts Foundation, the Arts Commission, and City Council for their continued support and hard work. And I'm here to also answer any questions. And I've had tremendous help from the Foundation and from our Arts Commissioners to get us here this evening, and some City Council people as well.
Thank you, Arlene. May I just ask a question? So how much has been raised by private funds in the last year, 2 years?
In the last 2 years, the Newport Beach Arts Foundation has given us a total of $41,000. And these monies have contributed what you see out in the courtyard, which is not in the courtyard, Sphere 112. They've given us monies for the Newport Beach Art Exhibition both years, $3,000 each year. They have given us monies, $3,000 to $5,000 for the opening of the Sculpture Garden exhibition, and they have donated $10,000 to the project this time, and an additional $5,000 for the project this evening as well. So it totals $41,000 over the calendar year of 2017 and 2018.
Okay, thank you very much.
And that is significant of their total resources.
All right, thank you. Any other public comments or members of the public want to speak, or a foundation representative would like to speak?
I'll speak from here because I just had my nails done and I've got the wrong shoes on. So
I've never heard that one before, but that.
Well, I came here at 4:45, so I've been through both your study sessions. I want to say that on behalf of the members of the foundation, we're very pleased to be working with members that you have so graciously given us as partners. And they are all hardworking members of that commission. All your commissions are as good as they are. You've done some really good work in picking people to volunteer. We are very happy to support them. And
Okay.
We're very happy to support them. Also, besides the money, I wouldn't tell you truthfully, but I think you've all seen us. Every time you see any activity of the commission, us and the foundation, so we won't count that monetarily. We are happy that this must go forward. One shining example. I'm here on site often because I work. I will tell you that on any given day, there are parents with children. There are teenagers who come here with their partners and they're photographing the sculpture. There on the weekends, there isn't a weekend that I don't see a bridal party up there. I am amazed at the kinds of activities and track. Maybe you know, this is something they enjoy, they just don't talk about it. I thank you very much.
Could you just state your name just so for the public record? Thank you. Aren't you the president of the foundation now?
Yes, I am.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your good service. Thank you. Okay, please. Any other public comments? Oh, excuse me. Please come forward. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Georgiana Ireland, and I am a new member of the Newport Beach Art Foundation. And I wish I was more prepared. I'm new to this, but I come from a background in the arts. I own a gallery, and I've been passionate and involved in the arts for more than 20 years. And I'm originally from Oregon, and so I'm very familiar with public art projects, Percent for Art, and I was actually very surprised that we don't have that here in Orange County. And so I'm very passionate about this. I believe there should be public art whenever we build big public buildings, hospitals, government buildings. There should always be a Percent for Art designated for this as part of enriching the community. And especially with Orange County being a proud and robust place with so many incredible corporate headquarters and amazing companies, we should be very proud of our public art. And I really can't say that to be the case at this point. It's really sad how little funds are designated for the arts here in Orange County. And so I'm new to this, but I'm excited to get involved, and I'd love for anyone to point me in the right direction so that we can start having great public art in Orange County. Thank you.
Thank you. Didn't you say you're on the foundation?
I'm a member of the foundation, yes.
Well, good. You've already started.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Welcome to Newport Beach. Any other public comments on this item? Sure. Please come forward.
Hi, my name is Carmen Smith. I am a member of the Newport Beach Arts Foundation, currently the secretary. I have served as president for 2 terms, maybe almost 3 terms. But I want to make one mention, which I think Arlene probably and everybody else knows and have touched on. I've been involved with this since the beginning. My husband served on the Arts Commission, and he was one of the instigators of the art in the park situation. Because at that time, you had a lovely park, a 10-acre park that nobody went to because there was no reason to go there. You had weeds and you had plants that were growing riparian. I'll give you that. Okay, little birds going around. All of that was beautiful. And you had the bunnies, which of course had their own set of controversy that went with them, but there wasn't any real art. And that's when they decided to work together, the arts commissioners worked together with Arts OC. They put forth a call for artists, and they got that beautiful first phase. Second and third followed, just equally beautiful. But when you had the kind of publicity that came to Newport Beach that we're not used to getting it. We get it for the boat parade. Yeah, we get it every year for the boat parade. We get it for our beautiful weather. Yes, we have beautiful weather. No one's going to debate that. But we didn't have the art. And then on top of that, the Orange County Museum of Art was leaving and going over to another city whose name shall not be mentioned. And I would very much like you to consider what the arts commissioners are asking for, because we'd like to see this go forward. We will work the hardest we can as Arts Foundation members to bring more money to the table, to make there be a phase 5, make there be a phase 6. But I think people to donate to these things have to know it's going to go forward, that it's not a one-shot deal. And that's what I'm trying to say, that this has gone since 2014. And that was a fantastic, you got more publicity from that nationwide on the art in Newport Beach. Basically, step aside Laguna, here comes Newport. And it's about time. We have a wide variety of people that live here. And we don't all want to be out in the sand. I hate the sun, so I'm never out in the sun. But others of us would come and wander through the park, take our children, take our dogs, take our loved ones, take pictures, make your Christmas card, which we've all seen them doing, especially when there was Red Gate, where they climbed all over Red Gate. Anyway, I want to thank you very much for considering us and for working with us. You are a fantastic city council. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate all your good work. Thank you, Carmen. Please, no applause. Any other public comments on this item? Yes, please, come forward.
My name is Miriam Baker, and I'm an art commissioner, and I'm a sculptor. And recently I went to the city of Minneapolis, and we were told that one of the highlights of visiting Minneapolis was to visit their sculpture park. So I went to the sculpture park, and I enjoyed it very much, and they had some pretty famous sculptures there. But the whole time I was there, I was so proud of what we have here. We have a pretty darn good sculpture park here. Who knows, maybe it'll become a famous attraction someday, and people will come to Newport Beach to see the sculpture park. One other thing I would like to add is that I hope there's some way for us to buy the burnt match, because it looks so great in front of our buildings here. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none. Come back to the council. Do we have any comments from members of the council? Mr. Avery.
Well, like all of us, I've watched the progress of the art in the park, and there's no such thing as a great city without art, and we're finally getting there, and I'm complete faith that it will just keep getting better and better as more residents become aware of it, and we've got such a talented group on the foundation and on the Arts Commission to help push it along. I think it's got some inertia. It's something that we've desperately needed for a long time, I believe, just where there's a place where our community can come, visitors can come and contemplate and get a little bit out of the buzz of our fair city and enjoy it. So I'm totally supportive. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Muldoon.
Thank you. Mr. Heatherton, I'm looking at page 2 of the staff report. The paragraph reads, as part of the approval of Phase 4, Council directed that the funds for the artist's honoraria should come from private sources. And then in addition, Council directed the Arts Commission and staff reduce budget management fees by 50%, and city staff handled the installation of Phase 4.
Correct.
So some private funds were raised for this, correct?
That's correct, sir.
And how much that amount again?
$15,000.
So $15,000. So the request this evening is for how much again?
The request, there really isn't a request for additional funds. There's a request to transfer funds from an account called Professional Services into a sculpture exhibition account. So
Okay.
that's about $20,000.
About 20,000 authorization transfer. How about the second part that you're at, that is requested, that council directed the Arts Commission and staff reduce project management fees by 50%, and city staff handled installation of Phase 4. I understand asking for funds to sort of assist. I would argue that they've done a good job raising private funds. But how about the second part? I'm confused by it.
Well, it basically, the issue is that it's difficult to get the contractor, RSOC, to agree to a 50% reduction in fee when they were already contracted in 3 previous phases for the amount that they felt they needed in order to complete the project, which is about $85,000.
So essentially, the two are connected. You're asking for us to waive the 50% reduction, or effectively do that by contributing roughly $20,000.
Correct.
Okay, so it's not really asking as much as the staff report leads.
No, my problem with this staff report too is there's so many moving pieces and kind of contingencies that I was really concerned that it would be hard for both the public and the council to grasp it. So I understand that there would be some difficulty in that.
Yeah,
so
I can't grasp the sculpture art, so why can I? It's hard for me to grasp this.
Well, that's not what I meant. I meant on my part that I felt like it was difficult to express what was going on because there's so many different kind of pieces that work in concert together.
Okay, and then the city staff handled installation. That goes to the exact same issue, which is funds transferred for the sake of the private corporation to install. Or
that and the fact that we do think that there's a benefit to going with an outfit that specializes in art installation, and the fact that also that my feeling is that Public Works and MOD have a full plate with their core duties.
Okay, so personally, I am not necessarily the biggest believer in public funds being used for art, but in this case, we have an existing sculpture garden that we have to maintain and continue to have its usefulness. We're not voting to create a new sculpture garden. We're voting to maintain art that's appreciated already. And I think that the organizations have done a fantastic job of raising these funds. That shows that it's not simply coming to the city for its handout, but it's working for something that the volunteers really believe in. So I view it as a fairly small request for a fund that's established for this sort of purpose anyways. So I'll support it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Brenner.
I just wanted to say that I am a huge supporter of public art, and wherever I am in the world, I'm always taking pictures of the art pieces, and it's always interesting to me to see how those pieces reflect upon the community. I remember the first time I was in Salt Lake City, and I felt like I had been in a Mother's Day celebration because of all those beautiful sculptures that reflect the family, and I loved that. And I wasn't a huge supporter of our sculpture garden to start with, and I'm not sure why, but I just wasn't. And as the years have gone by, I've become so enamored of it. And one of the big reasons is because I take my grandchildren there when I don't take them to museums. I will take them to the park, and we can talk about those sculptures, and we have the most interesting discussion about those sculptures, and I don't get them to the museum as often as I would like, so I'm really impressed with that. I really appreciate how much more effort has gone into getting public input on the sculptures that are chosen. I think that's a big thing, and I think it's a big part of how we get to the point where the public financially supports this. So I would like to see even more efforts in that way, and I would hope that in the future we could do more in terms of just getting out there into the community and getting them to tell us what they will give us money for, what they would like to support, so that we know. I think we can, in this community, we can definitely support public art. And I think it's just a matter of us listening to the people and seeing what it is that they are willing to support. So thank you very much for all your work, and I appreciate the opportunity to visit it with my grandchildren. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I move staff recommendation.
I'll second it.
Okay. Mr. Herdman, did you?
That's all right. That's exactly what I was going to do.
Very good. Well, let me just make a couple comments, supporting other comments that have been endorsing the program. As long as I've been on the council, I've been looking at Ms. Greer and her passion for art in the community, and she's brought together, and Carmen Smith has been clearly a leader in bringing the foundation and private sources together. So this public-private effort is bearing fruit, literally, and I'm immensely proud of how the community has come together on this project. I do have, and to sustain it, I do have a couple of questions, though, just to follow up on Ms. Brenner's comment about the public engagement, which I think is fantastic. So I hope, obviously, you'll continue that. Do you specify California artists, or is this a national competition? I can't recall. Can you please come forward?
It is a national competition, and the call for the artist is advertised on CAFE, which is a national organization, professional organization, where every artist has the opportunity to see what opportunities are available in our city as one of those opportunities.
And I know I'm going to ask you this out of left field, but do you recall for Phase 3, we're talking about Phase 4, Phase 3, how many applications came in?
For Phase 3, I seem to recall we had approximately 120 applications.
All right. Do we have any way to know how many people are visiting, walking through? I know we don't do any sensing of people, but do we have any estimates of people who are visiting our sculpture garden?
You know, unfortunately, I'd just say it would be anecdotal, but,
yes.
You know, any time of day you go out there in the daylight hours, you generally see people strolling and, you know, contemplating the art. It's not like the library where we have a door count or...
No, I know. I was just
unfortunately,
sort of curious.
Yeah.
I, too, am supportive, and I will support this continuing. I would like to just put a modest challenge out to both the foundation and the commission, a couple things that continue to work together the way you have. And your art show exhibition has been a tremendous success, and that helps fund what you're doing here. Also, you have new members to the commission and the foundation who are personally generous and are targeting private funds for other programming that you're doing over and above the sculpture garden. So I'm really pleased with how you're looking at different ways to reach the community. And of course, the music in the park that we do in the summer is absolutely fantastic too. So I'm pleased to see over these years now that we've really been talking a lot about art, that it is touching many aspects of our community. Also, I just want to clarify, Mr. Hetherington, so the original funding, I know we've eliminated the I-13, is that what it was, I-13 policy, from the developer fees, because we really don't have that much development anymore, but we still have a percentage of the TOT funds that provide the revenue. Is that where the source of funds comes from?
You know, in the past, the Arts Commission requested that the Visit Newport Beach funds be used to fund the exhibition, but for this particular phase, it's the money was posted from the general fund to the cultural arts budget.
Oh, okay. I guess I didn't realize that. All right. In any event, if there are no more... Oh, Mr. Herdman, did you have another comment?
No, I just can't get that off of there.
Okay. I think you just pushed the button. All right. We will call for the vote. I will call for the vote. Let's vote on this motion to adopt.
Motion carried unanimously, 7-0.
Congratulations. Thank you. All right. Next item is item number 12, professional service agreement with Red 88 Media for Newport Beach TV video production and government access channel management. Staff, would you like to make a report, Ms. Finnegan?
Yes, Mayor. As I'm looking for our presentation, I can't seem to find it here in the folder. Let me introduce who is joining me this evening. Mary Losi from our department is here, as well as Anthony Nguyen from Finance. So if you would just indulge me for a moment while I find our presentation, I will be right back.
Okay. You have a video to show in the meantime?
Thank you. So if you'll indulge me for a moment, Mayor and Council, I'd like to quickly go over a few aspects of NBTV, because we operate a government channel and some of the terminology is unfamiliar to those that don't know what a government channel is. NBTV is part of what we call a PEG system, and that is public education or government channels. These are channels provided by cable operators for these specific purposes. You either have a public access channel, a government channel, or an education channel. In Newport Beach, we operate a government channel called NBTV. The channel is funded in part through a fee that's attached to cable subscribers' bills. We call those PEG funds. We get about $300,000 in revenue a year in PEG funds, but those funds can only be used toward capital expenses. So we put them toward things like the cameras you see in the chambers this evening, the broadcast equipment in the back that's actually broadcasting this meeting tonight out onto our government channel, NBTV, and related production equipment. Historically, though, we spend about $150,000 out of the city's general fund to do the other aspect, to actually put programming on the channel. And I should also note that NBTV does have a limited audience by its very nature. These were started by cable channels, so you must actually subscribe to a cable operator in Newport Beach to see the broadcasts. But we also do provide the programming live through our website, and also we have it available for playback through our website as well. So video has long been, through NBTV, a key component of our communication strategy in the city. But I think everyone probably in this room understands that what we're seeing is a rapid change in technology, and also a rapid change in how people view video. So we have a short-term and a long-term vision for our video component of our communication plan. First, we do believe we should continue to program our government channel, because even though that we believe our audience is limited, they are mighty. And when something is wrong with the broadcast, we hear about it. Some of you may recall last year we had some issues with the sound, and we heard after each council meeting that NBTV wasn't working properly. So we do believe in the short term we should continue to program it. However, we also believe we need to start stepping up and meeting the appetite that consumers have for video, and that is through the web and through mobile devices. So we want to enhance the content we have currently on the channel, do a better job of repurposing it for these other devices, and also look at ways to reach our audience where they are better by live streaming city council and perhaps other meetings on Facebook or YouTube, and also working to better improve accessibility through our website and our social media platforms so people can get that content more easily. In the longer term, PEG channels, the future PEG channels are uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen with the cable operators' business models. So we believe over time we need to start gradually shifting our focus away from programming the channel first and then using the content, repurposing it for other devices, toward creating channel for digital, for our online presence, and then using that back on our cable channel. So that's the setup of NBTV and how we got here. We had a 4-year relationship with our vendor, and unfortunately that agreement expired and is expiring, and we could no longer extend it. So we had to go out with a request for proposals to identify a vendor. It's been a challenging process because we have 2 qualified vendors, but ultimately staff is recommending we move forward with an agreement with a company called Red 88. They are a full-service video agency. Their primary focus is video. That's what they do. So they have a full staff and all the technology available to us to create video content for us. They do similar work for other public agencies. So they understand how to program a government channel, and they also understand the challenge we're having with trying to get that content repurposed for digital audiences. So they're already providing that to some of their clients. And I'm going to invite Travis Gray, who's the owner of Red 88, up very briefly to talk about his firm and what the work they're doing for some of their other clients currently. Travis?
Thanks. Hello, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Travis Gray. I'm the owner of Red 88 Media. And it is our pleasure to have the opportunity to be a part of your community. I personally worked in PEG access my entire professional life, which is about 15 years. And along with my managing director, Mark Clark, who's back there, we've managed multiple cities meetings and PEG channels over the last 10 years. We've shot on a weekly basis single-camera podium events, multi-camera shoots, in the studio, parades, concerts, and the like, while also running a public studio for some time. Our experience is pretty extensive when it comes to recording the type of formats that's being currently produced for NBTV. Beyond PEG channel operation, we are a full-service video production company, as was mentioned. And we've recently been producing more web-based content for our current clients, which do include public entities like the Metro Gold Line Foothill Construction Authority, who is constructing a light rail up in the San Gabriel Valley. If you look on their YouTube channel, all of the content is on there, has been produced by us, to which we've done some 3D modeling for them. Delivering public meetings to residents is a passion of ours, and is mine over my many years of doing it. You know, we love production. We love every aspect of production. We love mixing in volunteers into these productions, giving back to the community and raising up younger people who are looking to get into production. Many people who have come through us have gone off to more professional careers beyond what PEG Access gives them, mainly because the things that you do within PEG Access are little bits and nuggets of what happens in the professional world. You know, but operating a PEG access operation is what we've done for many years. We're looking forward to working with staff to set a modern vision for NBTV, and while also planning its growth to give the residents the best form of content with the better user experience. This is very important to us, to be a part of your community. And to integrate into your community as best as we can, and that's beyond just the government aspect or the government message that may go out from city staff, but also mixing into all the different aspects in the community. For instance, hearing about the Art Commission tonight is amazing. And I've done work with different art commissions in different cities in public art installations, and being able to add video to those type of elements of the community is very important to me. So we thank you, and we look forward to working with you.
And with that, Mayor and Council, Mary Losi just has a special point to make.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Good evening. So after we produced the agenda, we realized that we came up a little short in our calculations for the production hours. As you can see there, the video production blended rate. We had originally projected 1,300 hours annually for video production services outside of City Council meetings and Planning Commission meetings. And when we further looked at that, we realized that it only really equated to about 25 hours a week, which we thought was a little slim. So staff took a further dive by looking into the existing vendors' services and their hours, and they were a lot more. They were about 30 hours a week roughly for one video production. So we wanted to bump those hours up to 1,800 to accommodate the existing programming that we do, and to also further develop more content. With the proposed general plan coming up and other initiatives coming up, we will probably need the excess hours going forward. So if you would move to the next slide. So the revised recommendation that we're bringing to you tonight increases the one line item for the hours and the total to the first year 139,680, And then the term of the agreement over the 3 years would be a not to exceed $461,958.50. So that's the one change that is being made, but it of course changes the increased cost.
Do you want to say anything else?
No, go ahead. If you have
If
questions
you
or-
could go back to the prior slide, I just had a question. How do you calculate how many hours something's going to take from soup to nuts? I mean, so they film it and then they edit it and they mix it. How, is there a formula for that?
There used to be. It's challenging, though, especially with technology. And there's a demand now to see more graphics and more animation and more interesting things. So that's why we really went back to the historical to see where the hours were being spent. One of the things we've asked Travis to do is take a look at where we think the hours should be going to give us his professional opinion if we're allocating these correctly.
We don't know if we are necessarily.
Not necessarily, no.
Okay, so we're making an estimate of what our needs are going to be, but you...
Yes, based on historical.
It was wise that you just suggested to factor in the general plan. I was wondering that during our discussion earlier, if we would be filming any of those listen and learn sessions. I know, is that even...
We can. And one of the ideas we talked about with the council last year was adding cameras perhaps to some of our other meeting rooms. That also brings down our production costs by having robotic cameras versus, having a man camera. So we can do that to perhaps the Friends Room or Marina Park. And also, we just know that there's an appetite for consumers to view things on video. I think the statistic is by 2021, 80% of what you see across the web will be video content. And we know that young adults, I think it's 18 to 29-ish, 60% of those, they view their video online. They've unplugged completely and they're viewing their video online. So we know we need to get that content out, especially for our large projects like the general plan.
And speaking about users and data, it's always been frustrating to me, and I think you, that we do not even know how many eyeballs look at our NBTV because it's proprietary information by the cable vendors. So we have no clue.
No, years ago, we were fortunate enough to find a consultant that used to work for Cox and had some inside contacts there. And he was able at that time, that was 6 or 7 years ago, find out just the Cox subscribers and to get the daily viewing habits for our Gov channel. But we don't have those contacts anymore.
We're just operating in the blind when we...
It's challenging.
So I agree with your strategy to... I mean, we're talking about content. I mean, filming council meetings, filming planning commission meetings, filming art in the park is fabulous. It's basically taking that content we're already doing and redistributing it across different medium platforms, such as the internet, which seems so obvious. We don't even need more bells and whistles than that. It's the content is there. We're just not distributing it. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, we do distribute it, obviously digitally, but we do think it should be repurposed, repackaged better, shorter, much shorter for use, for viewing online. Viewers are only watching 1 to 2, maybe 3 minutes of content these days before they start pulling that little dot across to get to the end of the video.
You want to say something? Oh. Okay. Well, I think you mentioned Facebook and Instagram and other, so the existing content can be in bits and shorter pieces. We're not talking about elaborate productions as much as just repurposing the content we're already shooting. Is that correct? Am I saying that correct?
Right, which requires additional editing to make it a smaller package for online viewing.
All right. Any questions up here? No? Okay, well, why don't we go out to the public? Any comments by the public?
Mayor Dixon, honorable members of the City Council, Happy New Year and good evening. I'm Gary Sherwin. I'm the President and CEO of Newport Beach and Company. Over the last 5 years, we've had the distinct honor and privilege of being your partner on NBTV and also working with the NBTV team, Dominic, Ed, and Gordon, who are about 20 feet behind you, sitting in the room over there, pressing all the buttons and making the council meeting come together. They've been affiliated now with the city for well over 10 to 15 years before they worked with us 5 years ago when the city transitioned from a city-managed contract to working with us. I am a big believer in Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of the key goals of that Stephen Covey kind of articulated is begin with the end in mind. Understand what you're trying to achieve, and then build a framework to try to get there. I think part of the challenge with all of this is that what we're really talking about is more than NBTV. We're talking about the city's communication strategy and how you as the city want to engage with your residents from a formal communication strategy, of which NBTV is in a very important part of that. But I think part of the challenge as your supplier is that there has not been a consistent, well understood vision that's been understood by the council, by the staff, and more importantly, by our residents. We have not taken the time to ask our residents what kind of content do they want, how do they want it delivered. I think the plan that was articulated today, I think is a great one. Would have loved to have had that discussion a couple of years ago, because that's the way we operate. Visit Newport Beach is working on social media and creating digital information. But part of the challenge here is when you're having a government access channel, there are rules and restrictions that kind of hamper what you can do and the kind of content that you want to create. There's been a number of programs that we have suggested that we weren't able to bring to the finish line because we were told that it was inconsistent with the law of government access, or that there was a problem with it, including interviewing city council people or talking about various issues, even doing stories on some of the neighborhoods because potentially there were some commercial conflicts there. We think going to a digital platform and maybe away from the government access channel is an outstanding idea. We'd love to have worked with you on this. But I think the important thing is before a contract is awarded, let's have a thoughtful discussion as to what our residents want. We're talking about transparency and sunshine. We want to communicate better with them. Do we know the means in which we can best communicate with them? We think we know. We had one vision. The council had hired us under that. I'm not quite sure that vision has been able to be universally accepted. And that's really why we politely respect that maybe we take a time out, go through the process of developing a strategic plan to understand what our strategy is as a city, and then go back and take a look at the RFPs and who can best take you there, even if it's not us. But I think to do it without that framework does a great disservice to our residents. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the public?
Mayor Dixon and members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. First, I would like to say I support Mr. Sherwin's statement. I think our entire city's digital presence has kind of been created without much public input as to how it's being received or what the public wants. It goes not just for NBTV, but it goes for our website as well. However, that said, if you are going to make a decision tonight, I also support the staff's recommendation. If you're going to do video, it seems like you should choose first the company that can do it at lower cost, and second, a company that is specializing in video. It was rather strange, I thought, I guess 4 years ago now, when the city changed its management of NBTV from going from the city handling it to Newport Beach and Company, because at that time they had no experience at all in video. I had no idea why they were chosen to do that. And I still don't know what expertise they have. I would support the staff's recommendation and go with a company that knows how to do video. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Please come forward. All right, seeing none, we'll come back to the council. Mr. Muldoon.
I'm kind of an old school guy, and I think if it's not broke, you shouldn't fix it. I think we have an amazing system in place. Residents compliment all the time. Although I'm terribly embarrassed to see myself on television or on Good Morning Newport, it's fun to see people appreciate the services that are offered to the community and what a good job is done here locally with our local team. So I understand staff recommendation, but I'm going to make a motion to give this agreement to the incumbent.
I'll second that motion.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I think when we're talking about sending out an RFP for a specific concept, and it comes back where we have two different amounts, and one amount is substantially less than the other, then the question is whether the RFP was correct. Before, I think we would go with a higher cost. And in this particular case, the RFP was correct. And to Mr. Sherwin's point, it's a valid point. Maybe it is time for us to take a better look and decide whether the content distribution that we're sending out is correct and going out in the right format. But on this one, and maybe that's a conversation for the year that this contract is in place, because that's what this is. It's a year. It's not 3 years. It's not 4 years. It's a year-long contract with a city option. So when we're sending out an RFP that's very specific to do the exact same thing we've been doing for 4 years, and the staff has looked at it, interviewed, and done an analysis of qualifications and have come to the conclusion that they're similarly qualified, I think we go with the lower cost, so I can't support that motion.
Any other comments? Ms. Brenner?
I think my concern right now is that I don't feel like I personally am ready to make this decision. I feel like I need to know a lot more about this and about to make sure that we're comparing apples and apples. And there's something to be said for a local entity that is involved in the city in a great many ways. So I personally would agree that we either move forward with just the what we've been doing for another year and do a lot of outreach and figuring out what we're doing with it, or that we delay this and talk about it more and get more information.
Okay. Mr. Herdman, did you have a comment?
Although I seconded Mr. Muldoon's motion, and that stays in place, I feel like I need some assurance that both companies were bidding on the same package. All right, I'm a little confused about why this amendment was submitted tonight in terms of hours and that type of thing, and
The hours were, Councilmember, something that's a number we had. That's not something they bid on.
That had no effect on...
That did not affect their pricing at all. We asked them to come forward with a set cost for Council and Planning Commission and administrative and overhead fees. And we have those numbers. Those were solid. We also asked them for a blended production rate so we could be flexible, that if we needed more programming hours or less, that hourly rate would stay the same. So we merely took that hourly rate and times it by 1,800 versus 1,300 to come up with a revised cost that you see in the revised recommendation.
I guess I just want to say, to support my second of Kevin's motion, is that we've been working with and in cooperation with and collaboration with Newport Beach and Company for several years. They are a huge supporter of our city. We are a huge supporter of them. And I recognize the cost factor, and we should go with the lowest bidder in terms of doing business right. But there's a pact that's been developed between our organization and their organization, and they exist to promote us and to support us. And I kind of have a difficult time severing that, a piece of that. Not the whole, certainly not the whole relationship, working relationship, but a piece of it.
Mr. Avery.
You know, I really like the idea of a new company coming in, some young guys, and this is what they do, and you know, they're hungry for it. They've got a pretty darn good bid. But this is a difficult thing. We do have this relationship that shouldn't really factor into it, but it does. And But what I would like to see, as several others suggested, and Gary started it, is we really going to drop the ball. We need to be more proactive about what we want from this, because I look at it 3 years, almost $500,000. You know, we just don't have any sense really of the value it's bringing. We hear anecdotally from people, "Oh, we saw you on TV" or something, but I think they're probably few and far between. It's difficult. It's a lot of money, so I think we should, you know, really come to grips with exactly what we want, and then get to the media we talked about, and so I think the appropriate bridge to that would be to stick with or Beach and Company, as much as I initially felt those, you know, the bid that we got was pretty good, but I understand clear now what the reasons would be.
I'm going to make a comment. You want to go ahead? Okay, let me kind of try to distill where I am on this. I've spent a lot of time talking to a lot of people, the staff, and certainly I am a strong supporter of Newport Beach and Company, Visit Newport Beach. They're the best in the business, best in the world in terms of bringing eyeballs and visitors to enjoy and appreciate all that Newport Beach has to offer, and they are hugely successful. That is their core business, is to market the city outside to potential visitors to come to our city. I have enormous respect for the company and for the team that Gary has put together to market our city. I honestly don't know if that's the core competency of Newport Beach and Company, is to do video production to our residents. We're not selling our city to our residents. We are extending the content of the filming that we are doing of the various civic activities that go on, and packaging it in such a way and more contemporary uses of technology and platform to redistribute that. I want Newport Beach and Company and Visit Newport Beach to continue doing exactly what they're doing and continue to do it well and excel. That's where they excel. This amount of money, or at least on an annual basis, $100,000, is just what is it? Oh, less than 1/100th of 1% of what the Newport Beach Visit Newport Beach budget is. It's such a small part. It's not a core part. The content, well, looking back over the last 4 years, the content that has been generated has not been put onto Facebook or other social media platforms. So I don't know what has kept that from happening, because it's the content. The content, the beautiful, beautiful, professional quality content that Visit Newport Beach creates goes all over the world, and correctly so. But that level of production value it's not needed, or it's really not manifested in what we're doing here in a council meeting or going through the sculpture garden. I think using a video production company, whose job is to help us identify within the city opportunities to communicate with residents, not outside of the residents, but the residents. What is it going on in their city? So I don't see it marketing the city to the residents. I see just conveying information to the residents. We could look at a strategic plan. I frankly would like to just say I think the bar is very low to improve on what we already have. I've said this several times today, talking with staff and others, that the tail's been wagging the dog. I mean, the generic formula of public access TV should not be the driver of how we communicate with our residents, but it is what it is. It is still an element, just as Tara said, because there's some financial benefits to that, and for people who have limited access, that's what public television is all about. I don't want to stop that. However, the same content that's generated can be redistributed in exciting ways that are more creative than what we're doing today. I feel that it's time it is significant over 3 years, but on a 1-year trial basis to see what kind of different kinds of content distribution that we're talking about that can add a little bit more excitement and viewer readership eyeball attention to the information that we're conveying. And I would like to maybe limit it to 1 year and see what we can get with that. And it means absolutely no disrespect to Gary Sherwin. I love you, I do, Gary. You are the best thing that has ever happened to marketing Newport Beach. But I don't know if video production for a local audience is the core competency. You have greater competencies to market to the world. So it's not a reflection of that. I'm just saying, where can we just take this narrow band of communication needs and focus on the community? So I would like to support staff's recommendation, so I guess I'm not supporting the motion on the table. That's where I am. Did you want to make another comment? Go with Red 88.
Yeah, so just to talk finances, oftentimes in business, the risk itself is not paid for the slight deduction in costs you're looking at short-term basis. Nor does the quality that you're experiencing at the time necessarily worth risking in its entirety. And I believe that both companies are competent. But since I thought you were going to make a friendly a friendly amendment to my motion, but if I'll keep the motion. This is for a recommended term of how long?
What we had under for staff recommendation was a 1 year with 2 year extensions. So we would like guidance if you're with your
Okay.
motion, what term you would like.
So yes, how about I will amend my motion to be a 1 year term for the incumbent?
With possible extensions?
No extensions, so that way we can have this conversation with incumbent aware of what perhaps we're looking at. I don't necessarily share the same desires as staff, actually. We have the second oldest population in Orange County outside of Laguna Woods, and I'm not sure the viewership is going to be the exact same, but I understand what staff is going. But the parameters can be couched in such a way that everyone's aware of the rules and what we're looking for in 1 year's term. So I guess it gives an opportunity for the incumbent to make changes, but it's not, in my opinion, proper this time. So yes, it'd just be for 1 year term.
I'll agree to that as far as my second.
Thank you.
Brad, did you want to make, Mr. Avery?
Just that I support that. Was what I was thinking. And I hope the other vendor comes back.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yeah.
Could I see the slide showing the cost differences? Okay. Yeah, I mean, we just had an entire item talking about a $20,000 issue for the arts, and we're about to spend $20,000 more on the same service. So okay. I'll vote no, but I understand the sentiment.
All right, let's call for the vote. This is on the motion, on Kevin's motion, Mr. Muldoon's motion. Okay.
With Mayor Pro, there we go. With Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill and Mayor Dixon voting no, the motion carries 5-2.
Okay, Madam Clerk.
A motion to reconsider the vote on any action taken by the City Council either this meeting or the previous meeting may be made only by one of the council members who voted with the prevailing side.
Seeing none. Okay, we have two adjournments, memorial adjournments. Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill, would you like to begin?
Yes, thank you. Longtime Newport Beach businessman and resident Tom Deemer passed away on December 19th. Tom was born in February 1934 in Hibbing, Minnesota. He worked at the world's largest open-pit iron mine before joining the Marine Corps. After being stationed at Camp Pendleton, he decided to make sunny California his new home. Following his military service, Tom worked as a teller in the banking industry, eventually starting his own bank, Mariners Savings and Loan, on West Cliff and Dover here in Newport Beach. He later served as president and co-owner of the Balboa Bay Club and the former Yankee Tavern restaurant on Coast Highway. Tom was a chili aficionado, having served as the governor of the charitable International Chili Society, which hosted its World Championship cook-offs in Newport Beach. He was also an avid golfer, showing up to play through his final weeks. Tom was known for his honesty, generous advice, and friendly demeanor. He never forgot a name or a face. He is survived by his children, Kevin, Michelle, and Colleen, as well as 4 grandchildren.
And I am adjourning the meeting in memorial to Bill Barnett, the longtime water polo coach at Newport Harbor High School and the U.S. men's water polo Olympic coach who passed away on December 24th. Bill coached at Newport Harbor for 49 years, leading the men and women's water polo teams to 15 CIF Southern Section titles. He was hired by the high school in 1966 to serve as a coach and teach mathematics. In 1984, 88, and 92, he took on the additional responsibility of coaching the men's national team in the Olympics. Bill successfully led Team USA to win a silver medal in Seoul and placed 4th in Barcelona. He also served as the national team video and scout coach. He attended Long Beach State, where he received his degree in physical education, and he was accepted into the Long Beach State Athletics Hall of Fame and the USA Water Polo Hall of Fame. Coach Bill was known for his game preparation, watching film tape, and reviewing the fundamentals. He was straightforward in his instruction and meticulous in preparing for each and every opponent. He was constantly researching and conversing with coaches from all different athletic backgrounds. He taught his players to be teammates and about the importance of tradition and leadership. Bill is survived by his wife of 52 years, Marcia, and his children, Megan and Tyler, and 4 grandchildren. There will be no memorial service or funeral, as Bill requested that his ashes be spread at sea. Mr. Muldoon, did you want to make a comment?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to adjourn in loving memory of my father, Christopher Thompson, who died in December, and he was loved by countless, including his new grandson, Canon Thompson Muldoon. Thank you.
We are adjourned. Thank you.